Alright, Kingkillers, we're covering chapters 20 through 23 in this episode. We cover Kvothe's break-in attempt of Ambrose's room, the aftermath, including getting carried like a little baby to the medica for heat exhaustion, and the realization that someone has started to perform malfeasance against him. We also talk a lot about the oft-overlooked roofing industry in fantasy stories, how we'd portray Kilvin carrying Kvothe in the adaptation, and what we do for the opening sequence to the show. Feel free to hit me up anytime you want, Mr. Hulu. Got a lot of great ideas. But yeah, so sit back and enjoy.
Welcome back, you gorgeous killers, to the unbelievably upper echelon and utmost killer broadcast, Kingkiller Podcast. Tonight, your hosts, Candyland Dan, Topless Twister Tim, and Time to Risk Fitz. That's me. Guys, had some spare time this week to play your favorite games?
Yeah, I always find time for Candyland.
Yeah. I played Candyland actually yesterday. Topless Twister, yeah, that's a must. That's every evening. That's a pre-sleep ritual for sure.
Just by yourself.
Still pulling that titties out.
Yeah, let them
Titties
flop.
out, Twister.
Air the nips, and get yourself, some good yoga positions, via Twister spins. And
you ought to get a specific nipple sticker that you can put on that Twister, flip arrow, so that every once in a while somebody lands on a titty twister and you can just tweak them, the tweak button.
I'm not sure I'm making the connection. Oh, you just mean you just write it on there. This one also combines a titty twister.
Yeah,
interesting.
Stickers. Titty twister stickers.
I think you should start your own game.
Topless Twister, Tim.
Yeah, I think you should reach out to one of these companies that make these games and let them know. $1 million idea, bro.
I'm just going to start making the stickers. There'll be nipple stickers for Topless Twister.
Got it.
Yeah, it's going to catch on.
Like have a couple fingers pinching
so
it.
that's some merch there. You can put that in the merch store.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's anything that would catch on, it seems like this idea is definitely, it's a gold mine.
Speaking of, gold mines, I did a poll today on Twitter that you guys should be aware of. Okay. It's very scientific. It answered a very important question I said, so we're recording another episode tonight, and I wanted to scientifically prove the answer to an important question. Who is your favorite Kingkiller podcast host? It's a 3-way tie. We had 6 million votes. 6 million
3-way
even.
tie. All right.
Cool.
3-way tie.
Even.
It was 2 million picked Dan. 2 million more picked Dan. It's not debatable. And 2 million also picked Dan. And Tim and Fitz suck.
Oh, it
sounds scientific.
So clear. All 6 million picked me as their favorite host. 2 million think it's not even debatable. Another 2 million really don't like you guys.
So this was
on 2
on
million. They seem okay with you.
You sure this wasn't on the Dan Strokes Himself podcast?
No, this is on Twitter. It's a. You can look it up. You can go to my Twitter page and look it up. It's very popular. Now this is going to come out probably about like 18 weeks later than the Twitter poll, but just scroll through my feed until you find it. Just scroll through.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what date it is. You'll find it eventually.
Yeah.
It's a very big poll. 6 million votes.
It's a lot of votes.
All right, well, let's dive in, guys. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, having just found out that Ambrose the jackass has Dennis' favorite ring, we find ourselves at Chapter 20, entitled The Fickle Wind, on the roof of the Golden Pony, where Kvothe is preparing to break into Ambrose's room. With Will and Sim on the lookout and sympathetic twigs in his hand, our hero makes his way to Ambrose's window. Jimmy's the locks, narrowly escapes falling, saved by the wind, and jumps into the room. He doesn't find the ring, but partakes in some mischief before Ambrose returns. Kvothe counteracts a ward on the window, narrowly escaping being caught, only to fall out of the window off the roof. And then he makes his way back to his own room, where he meets his friends there, and Sim tends to his wounds. Guys?
Yeah, this is a good one. It's kind of an interesting chapter with the, he's fucking chilled up on the roof with his nerd cloak, hiding out. One of the few times his nerd cloak is actually useful for covering his pale, pasty skin. And I like the stakes of it. I mean, he's in a position where if he gets caught, he's going to get expelled. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's getting expelled and probably whipped and who knows what else. And he's doing this all to get Denna's ring back. He can't come up with any better solution than this other than to break into this dude's fucking room and try to steal it back. And I like the touch where the way they get Ambrose out of the room is they slip a note under his door, and it's like a flirtatious note where a girl is like telling him to come meet her somewhere, and they have Will write it because they judge that he's got the most girly fucking handwriting.
Yeah, the whole setup is enjoyable to read because you're getting the layout of like their plan and how it's concocted. And I mean, it's pretty simple. But I like if it's called Sympathetic Twigs. It's a good band name. Maybe that's the boy band, Sympathetic Twigs. But
no, their name is just Boy Band.
That's just it? Boy band?
Yeah.
Boys are back?
Clever.
The boy band.
Nice. But even just that use of sympathy is pretty. I mean, it's like as rudimentary as it gets in terms of an example, just shaking a twig. But it kind of hints at what sympathists are capable of. Just people who have the smallest bit of inclination with sympathy. I mean, you could cheat at cards. I'm picturing like Casino with the thing where he's hitting his leg. Just being able to do things like that. You could really run roughshod over towns in all different kinds of ways through uses of sympathy and even just rudimentary ways.
Yeah, the ability to signal each other would be extremely useful, and you could utilize it. Surprised it's not used more. It's only really used twice. Or 3 times, I think. They use it in this situation, then they use it again when he breaks into Ambrose's room, and then when he's hunting the bandits, he uses it again. But it seems like it would be a more utilized,
Yeah, if I remember right, is it Martin that he gives a stick to? He freaks him out.
Yeah,
freaks him the fuck out.
Martin fucking shits his pants over it.
Yeah, it's very funny. I like.
I don't want to.
Go ahead.
I don't want to gloss over, but I'm interested in looking at the larger picture here because it really seems like Ambrose set him up. Like, even though, I mean, I don't know, I'm considering him dating Denna, like somehow maybe knowing that Kvothe has an interest in her, knowing how important the ring is to Denna, maybe, I don't know, but it just seems like that there's at least a chance that Ambrose has set Kvothe up in this position so that he can take advantage of the consequences of it.
Yeah, but then why wouldn't he tell on him?
Well, and you know what, Sim and Willem kind of talked through this with him later on, but the whole time I'm thinking, but he's got Kvothe's blood. They don't mention it, but he busts his head on the door. On the window. He cracks his elbow. I think there's a real good chance that Ambrose has some of Kvothe's blood at this point. Or later on.
No, he 100% has his blood. That's when they go, because when they go get the Mommet, they find the Mommet in his room. That's what they destroy when they break in there. They don't break in the second
later
time to steal like the ring. Then they know he's attacking Kvothe, like because the way they find out, like for sure, it's Ambrose is they start waiting to see when Ambrose is in his room versus when he's in class and other things, and they find that the attacks always happen when Ambrose is in his room, and then when they break into his room, they find the Mamet is in there, and then they destroy it. So Ambrose 100% has his blood. So if he was setting Kvothe up, he already had him. He had him nailed. He would have just went to the masters and gave them the blood to track who the guy that broke into his room, and then they find out it's Kvothe, and then he's expelled. He's getting whipped. He might go to jail for robbery. Like, I mean, he's done. There's no reason to not turn Kvothe in unless Ambrose didn't know what he had.
Well, I thought you said he did. I mean, first of all, I didn't realize he had the Mamet, or I didn't remember. It's ringing bells now. But it just seemed like it was with the ward and the breaker bar or whatever it was, that all the different precautions, and then somehow, where Ambrose knew that someone broke in. I don't know. It seemed like it was a lot.
Yeah, but if you knew it was Kvothe breaking in and you were setting Kvothe up, then as soon as you get the blood, you just go to the masters and Kvothe's done. It's end of story at that point.
You're saying that he didn't know whose Mamet it was? He didn't know that it was a Mamet of Kvothe?
He doesn't know who he's attacking. Because there's a point when they break in and Ambrose comes back up to his room and he's like, what the fuck are you doing in my room? And then there's he realizes, oh shit, you went in here to destroy the Mamet. He realized all of a sudden it was, oh fuck, I had Kvothe's blood. So there's a realization of what was going on, but he did not know beforehand. I think they're correct to assume that he doesn't think Kvothe is dumb enough to try to break into his room himself. He thinks he would hire someone to do it. So he thinks he's attacking a criminal who broke into his room, probably hired by Kvothe. And so he's trying. He doesn't realize that he's attacking another sympathist. He's thinking he's just attacking some random dude.
The drop bar and the runes on his window and all that stuff, that's not for Kvothe. He has that because he's a paranoid rich kid who fucks people over. You know what I mean? I think that all that's there to begin with. That's pre-Kvothe. That's how his people do it. You know what I mean? They have all these precautionary measures in place ahead of time to begin with. It actually works out pretty great in terms of the story and upping the ante as well, and how it all plays out through this. But yeah, I agree with Dan, or at least that's the way I've always read it, is that Ambrose didn't know. He then does realize, which is a nice payoff, right? Because the moment he realizes it's too late, he can't really do shit about it at that point.
Yeah, so he had Kvothe fucking nailed to the wall, but he assumed Kvothe is, as calculating as him when it comes to devious plots, and instead Kvothe is extremely reckless. It was an extremely reckless move to break into Ambrose's room. Extremely reckless, but he ends up getting away with it. It leads to some fantastic chapters coming up. But I also, though, I like in this when he's on the roof and he's walking by the one room and he looks in there and he just sees like a tangle of legs and there's a group of people in a bed fucking playing titty twister, and that's a pretty classic moment, like where he's worried about, if I look in there, I'm so freaking pale, that moonlight and the glass gonna fucking look like a lamp looking into the room. And then, but they're real focused on their game, so they don't see him.
They must have got a nipple sticker.
Yeah.
It makes it so much more interesting.
I like even like the little things like when Kavothe's in there, instead of stealing shit, he's like, oh, don't get me wrong, I thought about it, but he did go as far as like checking Ambrose's pockets and then weakening seams. So he splits his pants up, but there's a good chance he's going to split his pants the next time he sits down. Like just little shit like that. Loosen the handle on the chimney flume, so next time he uses it, there's going to be smoke everywhere until he can actually reattach it. Just like little petty things. I like those little additions.
Yeah, that shit's fucking great. And then I also one part that I am curious about is when he is on the roof and he's trying to open the window and he pulls it too hard and he almost falls off. He's doing that fucking cartoon waving his arms and shit, trying to get his balance back. And then he's saved by a gust of wind. But I'm curious what's going on with the wind there, because it was like, it saved him and it fucking smacked him and it tossed him off the roof. Like, I mean, the wind played a major factor, as far as like pushes him back up on, gets him his balance back. But then when he goes back in the room, bangs into him and closes shut on him. Then when he gets out, it bangs into him and that causes him to fall off the roof. So like
it also pushes him past that window, the orgy window. It pushes him to where he kind of has to go. At least that's how I saw it.
Yeah, but the wind is playing a big role in these scenes and this scene. So I'm curious if there's nothing. There's no hint that there's more to it than just gusts of wind here. But the fact of, it was mentioned in such a prominent way, and it's, you got the name of the wind and that kind of stuff, that kind of power. I'm curious if there was something going on, like on an angels or a namer type of thing in that situation. Obviously, we wouldn't find out until book 3. There's no clues, no hints, nothing. It's just something I am curious about. If it's not mentioned, obviously, there's probably nothing there. But
I thought about it too, Dan.
Curious about when I read it.
So there was just a couple things that I thought about along with that. Was like, if something was helping him out, what would be the point of what he was doing? That what would be the objective of whatever was helping him complete this mission of breaking in, getting out? Because there's one of the things that I considered was the loose flue handle, because that could kill somebody if he can't open up the flue and the room becomes filled with smoke. So if later down the road that ends up killing Ambrose, could be something.
Well,
I was just kind of trying to think what might. It's
not going to kill him now because his room gets torched later, so he's not still chilling in that same torched room anymore.
Yeah.
So that's not going to come into play. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe if it was come into play, maybe like they needed Kvothe to learn. Maybe let's say it was like angels. And this is I don't want to go like super deep on this because it's so speculative. But like if it was, say, angels, like maybe a possible reason could be that they needed Kvothe to learn how to make a gram. And so this led him down that path of, having, learning how to make a gram. So that maybe they need to get him out of Emory. And this is eventually what leads to Ambrose getting the constables on Kvothe, and then that's what leads him out of Emory. So it could be, something in that vein of we need to make sure he's getting where he needs to go, and so this is a catalyst, this moment, and so it leads to him learning how to make a gram and getting out of Emory. So could be. If that was the case, it could be that, but I'm not sure. I mean, like I said, I'm just something I'm curious about. I have no idea if there's anything there.
Yeah, it certainly hints at it because of how much it's suggested, how it helps him get in the room, and then complicates it further when he's trying to get in, and then also complicates it further when he's trying to get out, and actually knocks him off and maybe got him out of there because, in a way, it's, yeah. I mean, again, as you say, it's very speculative, but because it's mentioned repeatedly and it serves such a purpose, it does sort of bring up the question that something's happening there.
Blows him in.
Something's more.
Blows the window shut on him, and then blows him out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see when book 3 comes out whether there's anything there.
I do love when. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, it is the reason why he's got the blood, because it slams shut on his elbow, and that's how Ambrose gets his blood, right?
Yeah, which is why he has to make a gram. So yeah, that's what I mean. As far as like catalysts, the two big catalysts this leads to is him having to make a gram, and also, well, this wouldn't have been necessary to get Denna's ring back. He does get it back, but through this, but it wasn't necessary. But the things it was necessary for is the gram, and eventually getting him, having to take a break from the university.
I love the whole part in the scene where he's like trying to problem solve while Ambrose is out there slamming on the door. It's great, man. Like the tension's super high, as it's happening, because he's trying to deal with the runes on there, but without tampering with them, because that would make it quite obvious that it was Kvothe, or So instead, he's got to undo it mentally or fight it mentally. It's really great. I mean, and doing that at the same time that Ambrose is slamming on the door and about to get in there. It's great, man. It's really fun to read.
Yeah, he had to be quick on his feet. He had to go and not only figure out a way to break the sigildry, the binding. He also had, he had to quickly snatch like a letter opener or something or a pen
break
or something
in there, yeah.
Jam it in the lock and then break it in there so that, Ambrose can't unlock the door. So he had to be quick on his feet. Yeah. And then I love, when he gets out and he's like, breaks that tile, starts to fall, then the thing bangs into him, and he's like, then, since all my other options seem to be exhausted, I decided it would be best if I fell off the roof. I love the description. Just there's nothing else, no other options I had, so I felt the best decision was if I just fell off the roof. Then he does. And he's talks about like landing like a cat, and he said, instead I landed face down like a cat. Except a cat's legs are all the same length. I landed on my hands and knees. My hands merely stung, but my knees striking the cobblestone hurt as badly as anything I'd ever felt in my young life. The pain was blinding, and I heard myself yelp like a dog that's been kicked. That sounds extremely painful. Falling 2 stories onto your knees.
Yeah,
well,
man.
It's once again shows Kvothe's kind of superhuman unbreakableness, I guess, because if any of us landed on cobblestone on our knees, we probably wouldn't walk again.
Yeah, that's a rough one. I mean, 2 stories down straight on your knees. That's right. That's a rough fall. That's not going to feel very good.
Yeah, that sounds brutal. That sounds absolutely brutal. He is young, so you bounce back from things you wouldn't as you get older, but. Yeah, straight down onto your frickin' knees. That's one of those things where it's just like, for me, I just kind of move on because I'm like, well, that sounds fucking brutal. I don't know if a normal human being is just gonna walk away from this. Not that he walked away unscathed, but shit, man, he walked.
He ran.
He's even running. Yeah. And then all the shit he's doing the next day, like, it's fucking crazy.
And not only that, like his knees smack, and then one of the tiles falls and smokes him in the head and in the another one in the fucking elbow.
Yeah.
So
he points lucky. He points that out. He says later when they're when they're talking about it when he's in the medica. He says the clay tile landed on his elbow, could easily have broken his arm. There's sometimes the edges were as sharp as knives. And then he said, I hate clay roofing tiles. It seems unfair, man. They're not made for what he did. I think he's being a jerk to the clay roofing tiles. Seems unfair.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be put a damper on their business when this book comes out. Like, he's really fucking taking shots at the clay tile roofing business industry in his world.
Not to mention how many
plunged in.
leaks.
It's already bad enough. They're in there's a civil war going on. It's a 3 bleeder year. Like, they got enough problems, and then this dude's gonna fucking shit on their business model and fucking send them into a Great Depression.
Yeah,
and think of the leaks he's causing on all the different people, and raining on their beds.
Yeah,
good point, Tim.
Yeah, it's not nice. It's a mean thing to do.
It really is.
And that's not what they're built for. They're not built for you to jump off of and then throw them on yourself.
But if you do like running on roofs, they kind of suck.
Yeah, I guess that is the case. That's a good point. They probably shouldn't build tracks that people race on out of clay roofing tiles.
No.
Yeah. Because of this.
And if you're going to build roofs, you should probably have like paths for people to run across.
Yeah, because that's the point of the roof. The roof is, right? Isn't that what roofs are for? It's for
pretty much every fantasy book I've ever read, there's someone running on a roof at some point. So, yeah, I think, roofers need to put that into their business model in these worlds.
Also, stories about ninjas.
A lot of ninjas. Yep. There's a lot of
what
reasons
about
why you need a good running surface for roofs.
Well, you want running in pigeon coops, right? The Mike Tysons of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he had. He had a pigeon. He had pigeons. So we got to really, this is a good idea. This is industry.
The more I think about it, that is a flawed market, because you think about how many people are running on roofs in these worlds, and like you would think you'd want to build a surface that absorbs sound, so that people aren't like constantly just fucking hearing just as people are running across, chasing each other on their roofs. You don't want tiles that are falling off, breaking, that you got to repair. It needs to be like a cushy, sturdy surface, like somewhat spongy, but sturdy enough.
Well, and then also, do we still want to withstand rain? Because that's kind of important. Or is that not important anymore? Are we just worried about being able to travel atop of things? As
roofs are clearly like one of the most pivotal, parts of a house in fantasy books. So it's overlooked because there's a lot of mentions about roofs getting torn up, but there's not a lot of mentions of some ingenious businessman solving these problems and preventing this shit from happening in the future.
And Tim, you make a good point, because right to travel is mentioned in the Constitution. I didn't see anything about right to not having a leaky roof.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you think about it, if we did a poll, Dan likes his polls, how many people walk on roofs as much as they do on the street? It's probably going to be, what, 50-50? 60-40?
And that's if you're not in a ninja-based society.
Yeah.
Yeah. Throwing a ninja-based society, it gets insane.
Well, insane.
That's
practical.
Something, in the realism department, that is definitely something with bathroom breaks that I would like to see more fantasy authors start to handle more delicately.
Really got to hold Rothfuss' feet to the fire on this one, man. What's with the clay roofing tiles? Why are you making it so difficult?
Yeah.
Well, he needs to bring in the roofing contractors in book 3 and let them explain why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, that would actually be a good storyline. There's like a
chapters,
roofing convention that comes to Nowhere, And they all go to his bar. They go into the Waystone Inn, and then Kvothe explains to them a better system for roofing. So that's something I really like to see in book 3. I think that'd be really good.
I think it's worth 30 chapters, right?
Or so, give or take, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, however long it takes to resolve it.
Yeah, just, reach out to good old Patty. Let him know.
All right, well, then Kvothe, he gets back to his room, and he climbs up the grates, gets in, and then I like when Sim and Will come knock on his door, and Kvothe tugs on the twig, fucking scares the shit out of Sim. Will's just sitting there laughing at him. Like you go from the seriousness of the situation to just like their little fucking stupid guy humor.
Yeah. Yeah, just fucking with each other. And that also comes up at the is it the medica, or is that's the next chapter?
Well, for the next 3 chapters, I really enjoyed
the until next chapter.
For the next 3 or 4 chapters, just the camaraderie that continues to build, but there's I don't know. It just reminds me of back when you're getting into mischief and different things, and having a group of guys that watching out for each other and doing stupid shit. And anyway, it's a nice rounding out of their relationship. Just them having some hijinks together.
Yeah, and it cascades into some great scenes. I mean, it leads to a lot of good stuff. But yeah, I like too when they start trying to puzzle it out, and then talks about like Ambrose had set everything up. He's explaining to him like, all right, this dude was ready for it. You guys didn't screw up. They were thinking like maybe they got the signaling wrong or something. And he's like, no, this dude he's ready for this shit. He was prepared for it, and so he almost got caught.
Yeah, but it makes it pretty clear real quick, like how kind of reckless this shit was, right? I mean, because of how close they were to getting caught, and how it seemed like, well, the plan's simple enough. Seems like this could work. Not taking into account all these other variabilities that I guess, wouldn't necessarily realize that you would need to take into account. But yeah, he was prepared.
I like the sound like, well, could have been worse. Let's go to the medica and get you patched up. They're both like, what do you know? What are you talking about, you moron?
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're so fucking dumb. Like you are the most naive fucking person on this campus. Like
what's the problem?
I look like I just jumped off a roof, man.
Oh yeah, just be like, well, I don't know. I fell out of bed. I had a bad dream. Fell out of bed. This happens, right?
It'd be like you like, dude robs a bank, comes out like got shot, a couple times, and his buddy's like, well, let's get you to the hospital, get you patched up. Like, you don't think they're gonna ask where these fucking gunshot holes came from?
But yeah, I was fighting Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just landed, and
just
like I didn't even feel it until now.
Yeah, I'm a crime fighter at night.
So, man, he cracks me up. But yeah, and then I also too with Kvothe, he gives them a little bit of a lesson on how good of a liar he is. So they're like, the 3 of us were here playing breath all night. Sounds good. Can we say I won? No, I said. People must have seen Will at the pony. Lie and they'll catch me for sure. Oh, what do we say then? The truth. I pointed at Will. You were at the pony during the excitement and came here to tell me about it. I nodded to the small table where massive gears, springs, and screws were spread in disarray. I showed you the harmony clock I found, and you both gave me advice on how to fix it. Sim seemed disappointed. Not very exciting. Simple lies are the best, I said, getting to my feet. Thanks again, both of you. This could have gone terribly wrong without 2 of you looking out for me. But that's a point where, like, if you're Will and Sim, you're like, Hey, this dude's a practice liar.
Yeah.
This is a practice skill. This isn't something, he's just winging it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's always he's always pretty sharp, except for with Denna, Then he's kind of falling all over himself. Typically, well, no, it's not that simple.
He comes up with good lies with Denna.
Yeah,
She catches him in his lies.
Well, and besides the lying part, like his common sense, the things that he says, it almost goes against what just happened, because Kvothe didn't realize when he first started to break in and there was what he thought was 3 locks. It really only ended up being 2, if I remember right. But I thought I'm always judgmental of Kvothe when he doesn't reach that bar of excellence, but because so often he does. He's very logical and has a lot of common sense. Picks up on stuff where he can't lie, where he is going to get caught. But then, like in the instance of breaking into the room when he should have realized that with the double lock that there may be something else going on.
Yeah, he's extremely reckless. I mean, he's definitely like I said. I think probably last episode I talked about how there's people that call him a Mary Sue, and it's like, you're reading a different book than me. I mean, this is a flawed character. He is not just crushing it out of the park. Everything he's definitely not a character where he's just getting it right all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, dude, he makes all kinds of mistakes. He's extraordinarily adept and talented and athletic and witty, and he's got all those traits. He's got all those capabilities, but he makes tremendous mistakes.
Yeah, and like the I don't want to read about bland, average characters. I don't want to read about like
you want
someone like you guys. I want to read like
fucking
me.
Yeah, right. You do want obviously polarizing characters. That's what's fucking interesting.
Well, you want excellence. You want
Jesus.
You want brilliance. You want people that are that are worthwhile reading, that are interesting. You don't want like just an average Joe. That's not like I don't. If I'm going to read an average Joe, I just want to read like just historical fiction, historical nonfiction or something. Like that's not an interesting story. You want to read about like great characters, and Kvothe is great, but he is flawed.
Well, even historical nonfiction, man, you're not going to find a lot of autobiographies about average Joe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's not going to be a lot of biopics made about some dude that just fucking mowed his lawn every Sunday.
Yeah, well, that would be a good one.
Oh yeah. That's really just he paid his taxes and he voted. He had multiple vests.
Guy, yeah,
kept the same security job for 27 years. Retired on a
what kind of breakfast he eats in the morning? What's like his breakfast routine?
Had a stable 401k.
Mm-hmm. yeah,
really interesting.
Good, interesting book. But yeah, so he's great, but he's flawed, which is what makes the book good.
Well, it's like been one of our main topics of discussion since we started this podcast. Is he's as part of it, what makes him great is his flaws, or at least fun, absolutely. Enjoyable to read.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't understand how people could think that he's not, that is some extreme hero and not making continual mistakes. But he's still. I mean,
they have different.
He's a lovable character.
People change the definition of words. Where now Mary Sue doesn't mean what it actually means. But I also I like how Will's great for bringing people down to earth. Like he's good like in the next chapter when he stops the fight between Mola and Kvothe, and then here where he's like, it's like, hey, I remember a guy that said he was going to stop fucking with Ambrose, and he's and they give their Sim and Kvothe, give their there's no he's going to do what he's going to do no matter what, and Will's like, I know, I hear you. He's a bastard. That's why, I got talked into this. But you said you were going to fucking stop this. I just want to make sure you're aware of how crazy the distances you are going for this girl.
Yeah, and that's how that chapter ends. And he kind of points it out, so it has it sit there, for the reader as well, where it's worth pointing out, obviously, because Kvothe has these sort of blinders on to what he does, because he makes these leaps. He does it in the next chapter too, and Mully even comments on it, where it's like, yeah, you don't really see that you're making these leaps because you shouldn't call him a hero, but they are heroic leaps, and he makes these leaps just based off of his natural tendencies as the hero. But there's fucking huge risks, man. And that seems to be what Will is pointing out here. Like, at least acknowledge this, because you were saying you weren't going to do this shit anymore, but here we are.
Yeah, it's a huge, because of how much Kvothe denies how in love he is with Denna. That's why it's important to bring that up. Like, you could say all the shit you want to say about how you're not into her, but you look what you just fucking did for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever phrase Willem uses, it's like, I just want you to realize that you are head over heels for her. Like, you're all in, buddy. That's
he says, you realize you've gone well over the hill concerning this Denna girl, don't you?
Yeah, and it's something that's important to her, and he knows that. He's observed that, but it's a fucking object, man. He's not saving her life. He's not taking these big risks to protect someone. He's getting a trinket back.
As far as he knows. Seems like maybe there's something more to it, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Maybe it's a cock ring.
Maybe that's what
fits on a finger.
What it is.
Yeah, that's
cock.
what that's.
Just looking for her tiny wiener Cinderella.
Well,
that's why she's a courtesan.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking for that Cinderella.
That's why she's in this field.
Yeah,
it's to find the guy she's looking for.
Gotta make sure she sees a lot of wieners to find the right size.
She's just very choosy. She has certain interesting.
She has to be. I mean, that ring fits on her finger. You're gotta find a very limited man. Poor guy when she gets him, and poor Denna.
Yeah, poor everybody.
Shit, fucking
sounds like that's what she's used to.
Terrible situation.
That size.
Jesus. Glad I took it there.
But that is all I got for that chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that brings us to chapter 21, titled Piecework. In this chapter, Kvothe heads to the fishery, where he sees Basil, who informs Kvothe of a note from Kilvin, and that the girl from Traben has been hanging around again. Kvothe goes to Kilvin, who tells him to take on more difficult projects. Kvothe then becomes dizzy and passes out. He wakes up to Mulla in the medica, who has deduced that Kvothe was the bandit that broke into Ambrose and fell off the roof. She agrees to keep her mouth shut and fixes his botched stitches. Guys?
Yeah, one thing I like about Rothfuss a lot is he does a real good job of building the scene without overdoing it. So, like, you get, like, the walk was pure agony, but I was glad I was making it in the early morning dark when the streets were empty. There was bound to be a lot of folks talking about last night's excitement. If anyone saw me limping, it would be too easy for them to jump to the right conclusion. Luckily, the trip loosened the stiffness in my legs, and the willow bark took the edge off the pain. But by the time the sun was fully up, I felt well enough to appear in public. So he gives the details of, this dude waking up, feeling like he just got hit by a truck, and then kind of walking it off, working his muscles, loosening up a little bit, and getting where he can function. But he does. The reason I'm bringing it up is because, when I'm reading other authors, sometimes they're too few on these kind of details, or they overdo it, and they go through like, all the motions of working the muscles out, and they just overdo it with the details. Rothfuss is always able to just walk that fine line of giving you just enough details and not overdoing it, but really building the scene. And he walks a knife's edge masterfully on those little details. He's a master at the little details.
Yeah, it's a lot of two birds with one stone type situation, because he gives you visual elements to be able to see, and then at the same time he's justifying, or he's giving us the realism of why Kvothe would be able to get around and ends up doing as many things as he can do on a day when, dude, he just fell out of a fucking window on his knees.
Yeah.
Like, it's not realistic, but it gives you the realism through these details. And it's, like you said, it's not done painstakingly where we're like, seeing him, he's getting up and doing fucking yoga. He's walking around and he's getting certain things done. And because he's doing it at the right time of day, it speaks to the anxiety that he has to have, the fact that he's still in hiding to a degree, or he's hiding that his involvement. So he's having to, it's a reminder of all the ramifications of that he's having to deal with on a day like this, while he's also trying to physically deal with, his wounds, so to speak.
Yeah. And like, you could picture this taking like a couple hours. Like, I could picture him, working, up the ability to kind of walk around slowly but surely. But he does all that in one paragraph, and he's not, spelling it out. You can just fill in all the blanks for yourself. There's enough in there to build the picture, but then you could fill in. He paints it in a way where you could kind of fill in the details for yourself. So
I think that's one of the
explicitly spell it out exactly what happened, but he gives just the perfect amount of small details. He's great on that.
You point out a good just something that's really important as far as authors go is skirting that line between not over describing things so that people can still use their imagination, because that's when it becomes your own story and where you can really get into it, when you're putting those pieces together and building that out.
Yeah. He's great at it. But yeah, and then he gets to the fishery, and it's more of these just kind of not world building, but just scene setting, making the world feel more lived in, where it's not the same dude in trouble. Now there's a new kid in trouble, Basil, kid that we've interacted with. He's switching out these are details you don't even have to switch out. Like, you don't even need, could have just been some random dude, but he's got different people keep getting in trouble. So you see like Kilvin utilizing this position to penalize kids, and so just it gives you more of the dynamic of Kilvin and the fishery. But yeah, I like the with Basil, and then him doing his Kilvin impression and things along those lines are pretty great.
That's what
I like that Basil. I was gonna say I like that Basil kid too. He's not a snitch. He's not a rich kid. He's working his way through. A lot of likable qualities in this Basil kid.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't like about him, that he doesn't have rich parents. Like, kind of low class, but whatever.
The little bits he's put in about Basil here is in prior is that he is kind of respectable in terms of his abilities. But even in this little piece, it's a small little bit that feeds us towards where we're going, which is, the note that Kvothe is not to get materials or tools. So it's like, oh shit, what happened here? So now we're going into like some other complication. There's always complication after complication, and here it is. But then also we hear about this girl again, this thirsty girl that keeps coming around looking for the old redheaded wizard.
Yeah, I really wish I could go back to the first time I read this and remember if I had put it together. I would assume I did. It seems pretty obvious.
Trayman girl. Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, that's a good point. I've wondered that myself because it does seem obvious, and it does. I mean, for us, it just seems really clear. With Kvothe, it's like, I mean, you kind of just accept it because it's a book, and you're enjoying reading it, and you're accepting what's being fed throughout it. But it is kind of like, yeah, shouldn't he know? Like, not that many run-ins like that we've read about. He's got all these thirsty girls following him around. Is that what's happening?
I mean,
here?
I can understand why Kvothe, might not think that, because his mind is going to someone's trying to screw me over.
Yeah,
and that's his personality too. That he would assume someone is trying to screw him over, so he's not thinking it through. He just assumes that, and then once he assumes that, he stops thinking about it in any other terms. But yeah, it seems obvious to us, but I can still see why Kvothe, wouldn't think of it in those terms. But I am curious if, people go through that, and because it seems like Rothfuss was trying to write it in a way where people wouldn't know, but it seems fucking pretty obvious. Like, I'd be surprised if very many people don't immediately know who this girl is.
So it brings up it does bring up a thought in my head, is like, what is it? What about this story? There's huge undertones that some of which Kvothe understands, that, having to do with, Moffin Farm, but also the Chandrian. And you'd think that'd be at least on his mind still, and we don't hear anything, or not that there's so much that he can do about it, but at least you would think that it'd be on his mind.
Yeah, I goes a lot of it goes back to his time in Tarbean. I mean, this is a kid that has his guard up and thinks everybody's out to get him. So thinking back to just, this 2-minute span of your life where you've met this girl, it obviously did not, leave a big impression on him. I can't remember. I'm fairly certain that when she comes up, it takes him a second to remember who she is. So it's not even like that's how little of an impression she made on him.
It's interesting because for us, it's very impression. It leaves a lasting impression because he does such a he does something that is heroic and meaningful when he didn't need to at all, and it leaves an impact for us. But then also it gets further emphasized.
And on that, I'm pretty sure that when it happens, Kvothe remarks on it as like, this is one of the reasons, I became the man, I am. So. Yeah, it's tough to say. It's one of those parts in the book that it's a little hard to. I kind of get it why Kvothe wouldn't think it's her, but you'd think he'd be smart enough to figure it out. So that throws another wrench in you. You Mary Sue fucking advocates.
Well, hey,
dude can't even.
The other thing,
he's so much not a Mary Sue, he can't even figure out the damn obvious thing that everybody else probably figures out immediately.
I don't want to beat it to death, but how much has he, like actual information has he gathered on the Chandrian as hard as he looked? Like, this is one of the only things that he's known, that he's found anything about. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to.
It's like, I mean, it's damn near new information. It's fucking. I mean, and then putting it into perspective towards everything else that he's searched out, it's massive. I mean, it's fucking massive. So yeah, it stands out huge. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, I'm maybe it's me, but ever since we talked with Chivalrous Rich, I've been looking forward to the meeting back with this girl from Trayman so that I can, decipher it again, all the different things that are on the pot. So it is on my mind.
Yeah.
And I would think that it's on Kvothe's, but
Yeah.
apparently not.
Then he goes into Kilvin's office. You get the information like this reiterating he doesn't usually go there during the day, so he's even just thrown off by the lighting in his office. And also, I assume when Kilvin is doing the glass blowing, I kind of assume that he's also got the 2 chairs set up and he's doing the splits, getting in the hot yoga.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That'd be a sweaty mess.
Yeah.
So he doesn't mention that, but
no, he doesn't acknowledge it at all.
That's on the undertones. I mean, Rothfuss, he gave us enough there to where we can paint that picture for ourselves. That's why it's so hot in there. Kilvin's doing hot yoga, glass blowing.
He's wearing a singlet, right? Like a wrestler singlet.
Yeah. He's got a one piece on.
Mm-hmm.
I like to, Kilvin, he blows it up and blows the glass up, and then when it finally breaks, said it sagged on the end of the tube, deflating and falling to the floor. Kiss Kraylin coat, he swore furiously. He threw down the metal tube where it rang sharply against the stone floor. Kramet Breviton Aaron. I fought down the sudden urge to laugh. My Sierra wasn't perfect, but I was fairly certain Kilvin had said shit in God's beard.
Yeah, it's a classic curse phrase there.
Yeah. But obviously, as I'm sure you noticed, we got coat again. He said coat.
Yeah.
So that one thrown in again as well, which is it's not destroy. What is it again? It's like
disaster.
Disaster. Yeah. I mean, it's he builds the scene really nicely because of what ends up coming out of this with what Kvothe's dealing with physically, with all the heat, and then what Kvothe's what Kilvin's literally doing is dependent on that heat, and then it's just sort of he's kind of taking it all in too because he's on his heels. He doesn't know why he's in this room to begin with. It's pretty. It's an interesting offsetting as far as I'm concerned in terms of how it goes back and forth. Also, it's interesting to me that Kilvin just sort of he treats Kvothe in some ways like a colleague, I think, and I kind of feel that in this circumstance as well, where he has him, doing the bellows.
He's a great. It's a great mentor relationship. I mean, he's a great mentor, and not like a. It's not so much like a just student teacher. It's more like a mentorship where he's trying to push this kid and get him. He sees there's a lot of potential in him, so he tries to push him, but he's not like fucking cracking a whip on him or anything. He's just demanding of him, that he push himself.
I like that. I mean, I like that he calls him out. I mean, he literally calls him out like, does this work please you? At first, he lists it off.
I like that.
With his memory.
3 sets of synchronized bells, brass, he said without preamble. 1 tap and catch, iron. 4 heat funnels, iron. 6 siphons, 10. 22 pans of twice tough glass and other assorted piecework. It was a list of all the work I had done this term in the fishery. Is that what you desire from your time in the fishery? Easy work? But yeah, he busts his chops in a good way, in a way that resonates with Kvothe. And you also get, the good aspect of Kilvin's personality where he has chastised him in the past about doing wrong, but then when Kvothe tries to use that, in a freaking, weak way, he's like, I'm somewhat leery of venturing off on my own, I said. You didn't particularly approve of the modifications I made to my hand lamp. Those are coward's words. Will you never leave the house because you were scolded once? He looked at me. I ask you again, bells, casting, does this work please you, Rilar Kvothe? The thought of paying next term's tuition pleased me, Master Kilvin. And he's like, then, and the work itself, truthfully, Master Kilvin? I asked, feeling a little lightheaded. He looked a bit offended. I value truth in all things, remarked Kvothe. The truth is, I've made 8 deck lamps this last year, Master Kilvin. If I have to make another, I expect I might shit myself from pure boredom. Kilvin huffed something that could have been a laugh, and smiled widely at me. Good, that is how a Relar should feel. He pointed a thick finger at me. You are clever, and you have good hands. I expect great things from you, not drudgery. Make something clever, and it will earn you more than a lamp. Certainly more than piecework. Leave that to the Elir. But it's one of those moments where you get reiterated how good of a teacher, mentor Kilvin is for Kvothe, where he lets him, gives him the freedom to kind of do his own thing. But then when he's like looking at Kvothe just doing mundane shit, pulls him in the office and fucking, sets him straight. Like, hey, look, too good for this. And he not only is like pushing him away from doing this little, this weak shit that is just drudgery. He pushes him away from that. And he's right that when he pushes him to do something else, it does earn him more money. So he's like, stop thinking about this. You're thinking too small. Think too short term. You're way more skilled than that. You could make, not only is it not worth your time, but you'll make more by showcasing your talents. So it's all around great advice from Kilvin.
Yeah, and I mean, he makes something that's really impactful on the world itself, which is, again, what you said as well, which is why it's more financially impactful for him. But we also do get, apparently, Kvothe does shit. If shitting yourself in this world means what it would mean in our world, right? Unless he's talking about he's shitting himself, like lying to himself.
Well, they talk about shit, but that's not evidence that they actually take shits. Shit exists, but there's no evidence that
it leaves the body,
that they take shits. Yeah.
Interesting.
So maybe like that's why when they say like I would shit myself from boredom, maybe it's a very drastic thing because they don't take shits. So it's not clear. It's not clear. You can't say that they take poops yet. That's still a mystery that is not solved. It's a good catch though. I like that.
It brings up an interesting point that Beavis made one time, and that is, why do they call it taking a shit? You don't take it anywhere. They should call it leaving a shit. So
yeah. If we're gonna take these things literal, then you can literally shit in God's beard. Yeah, okay. That was Kilvin's curse, shit in God's beard. So if we're taking it literal.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right.
So it's not proof that they actually take number twos. But I like the catch. It's always something we should definitely focus on and make sure we talk
that's
about,
important. Very important.
As much as possible.
We got to hash these shits out.
Yeah. It's the biggest mystery for book 3. So we don't want to let any of these opportunities pass by.
Speaking of the unwritten, the hot yoga and, Kilvin, doing the splits and wearing the see-through shirts or the singlet, as Fitz was saying. I picture, when he's helping Kvothe, because Kvothe falls to the ground, faints basically, right? From exhaustion, heat exhaustion, as well as just general exhaustion, it seems like. I'm picturing, these two sweaty men, right? And he's carrying Kvothe. It just seems like a real romantic. I'm thinking like if this is on a TV show, if this is on a Netflix type thing, 80s saxophone, like some Lethal Weapon love scene, 80s saxophone playing as they're both sweaty, carrying as Kilvin carries Kvothe through the university.
Oh yeah, slow motion.
Yeah.
Wearing his onesie. Glistening sweat with Kvothe, curled up in his arms. Head resting against his chest.
His bosom, if you will.
It is bosom, if you will. It is pretty funny and definitely understandable in terms of Kvothe's position, where he's like fucking embarrassed as shit, picturing it like, dude, like I'm a child. This dude's carrying me around, which it's actually kind of the way Mola describes it is like, oh, it's kind of touching or something along those lines. To watch Kilvin like literally take care of him in that way.
Yeah, I like Kvothe's main concern is like, oh, this just fuck my rep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but super romantic.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the most romantic scenes in the books. That's very true.
Wouldn't I mean it actually? I mean, I say it obviously jokingly, but wouldn't it be fucking hilarious if they did that? You'd just be like, "What the fuck is this?" Like all of a sudden, this is a love scene. Like,
oh, you know what it is?
Why would you project it this way?
You know what song? It's not saxophone,
like,
Tim. It's
Kilvin's got like long hair, so like he undoes his bun, like puts his hair down, whips it back, and like just the sweat goes flying everywhere.
Oh, why just died in your arms tonight?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he springs into action, and then as he's coming out, yeah, that's so ridiculous.
Running through a crowd. Yeah, they do an 80s montage of him running through a crowd, taking advantage of all those hot yoga moves. Fucking like doing slide splits down between crowds.
He's doing deep knee bends as he carries dripping wet Kvothe. Jesus. Oh, man, that's funny.
But I really cannot wait for Rothfuss to write all our ideas into book 3. It's gonna be an impressive story.
I do definitely like Mola in the scene. She ends up being super cool, because she immediately calls him out, right?
Yeah, and he he admits, kind of gives her a half truth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then she gets super pissed when fucking Sim blows up his spot. This is maybe one of the worst examples. Huh?
I said fucking Sim, man.
Yeah, I was going to say this is one of the worst examples of him really just blowing up his spot. Like, dude, what the fuck?
Sim blows up the spot. Kvothe gets pissed, corrects him, and then Sim continues to blow up the spot right after that.
Yeah. Like, he doesn't even, just shut up. Like, then he's just like, well, I already started, so I might as well tell her exactly what happened. Yeah. He's like, she's like, what the hell were you guys doing in Ambrose's room anyway? Willem simply looked at her characteristically dark-eyed and stoic. Yeah, that's my dude. I'm fucking rolling with Willem. Yeah. And then no such luck with Sim. Kvothe needed to get a ring for his lady love, he chirped cheerfully. Mola turned to look at me, her expression furious. You have a hell of a lot of nerve to lie right to my face, she said, her eyes flat and angry as a cat's. Thank goodness you didn't want to insult my intelligence or anything. God damn it, Sim, I said crossly. Someday I'm going to teach you to lie. Sim looked back and forth between the two of us, flushed with panic and embarrassment. Kvothe has a thing for a girl over the river, he said defensively. Ambrose took a ring of hers and won't give it back. We just... Yeah, then Mola cuts him off. And
shut up.
Yeah, after you already fucking put your foot in the mouth, like, just shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. You give Kvothe an opportunity to tell whatever fucking story he wants to tell.
Whatever version, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let him handle it at this point because you already fucked it up. Yeah, he just I didn't want to skip. I didn't want to skip past it because I do think it is very telling about Kvothe, where Mola does say, "The last time you were here, I treated you for burns and smoke inhalation after pulling Fel out of a fire." And he's like, "Oh, that's not really a favor. Anyone would have done that." Or and she's like, "You really believe that, don't you?" And just kind of like,
I love that. I love that too because it's like, dude, there was people in there.
Yeah.
You were the only one that did that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well,
that's a good point.
This is kind of her point of like, I'm on your side because she says, I consider it a favor. Fel and I bunked together. when we were both new here, despite what you think, it's not something a lot of people would have done. And like you said, a lot of people didn't do it. They had a chance and they didn't do shit. They all froze up, which is what most people do.
Well, and it's, I mean, even if you say, no one else saw her, okay, maybe, but still, if people had saw her, you're jumping through fire.
Yeah.
Saying this isn't some fucking, tiny thing. You can easily die, and it's hot as fuck. Like, try to get close to a fire. It's not fun.
Well, dude, it's not just fire. It's that caustic fucking fire that eats fire, or fire that creates fire.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, man. Like, it was something that they already, again, this fucking Rothfuss did such a great job of building it ahead of time with, well, that's why the massive payoff when you visualize the puddle, you're like, oh shit. Because you already know how bad a little bit of this can be. So then your mind just goes to, oh shit, this could wipe out everybody, And then Kvothe becomes the hero.
Yeah, fire's not, it's no joke. I mean,
but in his mind,
it's
he's
not
like,
like
I let her borrow a pencil. I did her a little favor.
Yeah.
I did her a little solid.
Yeah.
Fucking saved her life.
Yeah. Do what anybody would do. I also like when they start to get into it. You get another good one with Will, where he fucking, shuts down their argument. It's like, stop, just stop, Willem said, startling both of us out of our argument. He turned to Mola. When Kvothe came here unconscious, what did you do first? I checked his pupil for signs of head trauma, Mola said automatically. What the hell does that have to do with anything? Willem gestured in my direction. Look at his eyes now. Mola looked at me. They're dark, she said, sounding surprised. Dark green, like a pine bow. Will continued. Don't argue with him when his eyes go dark like that. No good comes of it. It's like the noise a rattlesnake makes. More like hackles on a dog, Willem corrected. It shows when he's ready to bite. All you can do, all of you can go straight to hell, I said, or you can give me a mirror so I can see what you're talking about. I don't care which. Will ignored me. Our little Kvothe has a flash pan temper, but once he's had a minute to cool down, he will realize the truth. Willem gave me a pointed look. He's not upset because you didn't trust him, or that you tricked Sim. He's upset because you found out what asinine lengths he will go to in order to impress a woman. He looked at me. Is asinine the right word? I took a deep breath and let it out. Pretty much, I admitted. I chose it because it sounded like ass, Will said.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's a good point. There's quite a few here where places here where both Sim, even blowing up his spot, does poke fun at him like a friend would, and this is also, Willem being very helpful as a friend would be, and even mitigating or mediating between the parties here as well. Yeah, I like this. Yeah.
He's consistently the sound of reason. He asks the questions we would ask. He stops this fight. He stops. Like there's times where, just in the like 2 chapters from now, where Sim says something about, Mola, and Will just gives him a look like, don't talk about that. Or like when Kvothe was going to ask Sim something about his family, he gave him a look like, stop, don't talk about that. Like he's always that kind of voice of reason. He's much more aware of his surroundings and the social interactions and what lines you can cross with your friends and what lines you can't cross. And he helps guide his other friends through those waters. He's very, very much, he's very aware of his friends, their personality traits. He's much more cognizant of those kind of things than any of the rest of them.
Well, I like the way they describe him as stoic in this, or maybe that was you that.
Yeah.
But
no, that's Kvothe does. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a strong personality trait and a strong description of the way I perceive Willem in this. Just kind of thinking quiet but thinking, and at the right times saying what needs to be said.
Yeah, he even does it, again, right after that when she's like, who stitched him up? And she's like, looked like someone was, looked like you were trying to write your name in cursive on his arm or something. And Will, immediately jumps in. He's like, I think he did a pretty good job given that he's never done this before and was, not working in the best of circumstances. And he does it in a subtle enough way where he doesn't really like chastise her, but he makes it where she realizes what he's saying and she apologizes.
Yeah. And it puts her in her place, but and it does it in a way where it's not offensive, where she's just like, oh yeah, sometimes I forget. Not everybody works in the medica. It's not that bad. I'll fix it up anyway. But yeah, and actually Sim gets a date out of it.
Yeah.
Well,
man, it's a good Will chapter. He crushes it, and in this interaction.
Well, and it does, and I mean, outside of that, it does actually speak to Mola's character, where she does leave mention of his injuries off the report, and she just sticks to the original diagnosis of heat exhaustion rather than dude fell off a roof. So she's does them a solid.
Yeah, that's why. Like, I think Mola and Will would be a good pairing. I'd be curious, what Rothfuss would write, between their characters. They got some similarities, and she's kind of a ball buster, and Will's got. He's a stoic guy, so it'd be an interesting pairing.
She's also very direct, as he is. You know what I'm saying? Like she doesn't fucking really beat around the bush at all. So
yeah, it'd be interesting to see them together because they'd either get along really well or really badly. But we got to get he's got to write in some lady time for Will. Man. He gave Sim fucking fella. Like he's got to give Will something. Like a fucking naive, foot in his mouth Will is got the hottest girl in the university.
Sim, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Sim's got the hottest girl in the university. Will's got to get something.
Yeah, that definitely works out to the it's not nice guy finishes last, finally finishes first type situation, but it's kind of along that line.
Yeah.
But it's also what I do also like about it is it's like, hey man, you keep swinging the bat time after time after time, eventually you'll get a base hit.
Yeah,
and it worked. Although he didn't press real hard with Fellow, which is the
he's like
thing about that too.
He's like that. What was that Mets pitcher? Bartolo Colon. Bartolo Colon. Yeah, Jack's a homer and is like 15th year in the league.
Dude's great.
Keep swinging. Eventually, hit a home run.
That dude's a fantastic character, man.
Yeah,
that is all I had on chapter 21.
Me too.
All right, then moving on. Chapter 22 is titled Slipping. Kvothe further explains sympathy in this chapter and Elxadal's class. Dal and Kvothe discuss a Loden and naming as Elxadal plunges his hands into a fire and calls the name of fire. Kvothe goes to the Aeolian afterwards, where he sees Threp and has a drink with him. They discuss patronage, specifically Dinah's shady patron. And then on his way home, Kvothe is attacked with some sort of burning malfeasance. So he jumps into the river. Guys?
Yeah, so it begins with him talking about Elxadal's class and, how much light could be produced from 10 thongs of continuous heat using iron. Which doesn't seem a lot. Like 10 thongs is not much.
It really doesn't. I guess if you just like wore them all straight up at one time over the top of one another and not, spaced them out. One on your arm. Yeah, it
must be something to do with using iron. Because maybe, using iron and 10 thongs, maybe that's more impressive. But
maybe it's rubbing the thongs together. Maybe it's the friction added.
The friction with the iron. the
Mhm.
thongs.
Oh,
I
yeah,
guess,
like
I guess I could see
compounding
that.
friction. Compounding friction of thongs.
Kind of like a flossing
Yeah,
with
that's
iron.
exactly flossing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Flossing with the thongs with the iron. Okay. Well, that makes more
Interesting
sense.
concept,
So,
Tim.
yeah, okay, I can see that. So, yeah. But for some reason it's mind numbing to him. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts is how thongs are used in this world. But he thinks it's mind numbing, but he says, it was essential information. Bindings of the sort we showed Denna were simple, but when things grew complicated, a skilled sympathist needed to do some fairly tricky calculations. He always builds layers on sympathy and takes you from the basics, but he always makes it more and more complicated. But once we start getting to this level, he starts giving less and less detail. Then Kvothe is just like, kind of glosses over. He just tells you it's more complicated. It gets more complex, but he doesn't explain how it gets more complex. So, which makes sense if he's just telling this story to people. Like, if they're not sympathists, they don't really need to know.
Well, they're good.
How it gets more complex, but he gives enough information to us where it builds off of what we know, but he doesn't make it a lecture where now he's going into complex calculations and all this kind of shit. Like, he doesn't bore the reader with that kind of information.
Yeah, no, they're cool examples though, man. Like the idea of, so with this circumstance of adept sympathy, focus and control. So we already know, if we already understand the basics of how sympathy works, now you're focusing and you're controlling in particular. And then he does build off of this within these chapters where we do get more minute, where he has to when he's trying to control in the next chapter from what's happening to him. But I like the idea that, yes, lighting a candle with a wick, pretty easy. But if the candle's a quarter of a mile away or in a different room, focus and control are exponentially more difficult to maintain. So it's the kind of thing you're not going to just consider outright unless he mentions it. You know what I mean? So these little challenges, it's kind of like that game he played where he played a joke on himself. These are the things that, like, yes, if you sit down and spend the time, like, okay, so how could this be applicable? You could get there, but you kind of need the emphasis here, because when I first read it, I didn't sit down and then, okay, how could this all be applicable? You're just kind of taking the ride. But I like it. It's great. These little examples really help me to see it. And it's very important to the question that ends up coming up, which is what Den asked, where's the extra energy go? So the slippage, right? This idea.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, man, I really so a visual came into mind when he said the technical term was thalamic overfill.
Thongache.
Yeah, so this is what I was thinking.
You're saying it wrong,
first time. I gotcha. The first time someone pointed out a whale tail to me was in, I think, junior high in the cafeteria, and some girl had the whale tail. That's thalamic overfill.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the it's the dough on top and just below on the sides. That's the thalamic overfill. So it's very easy to visualize once you look at it in that way, right? Thalamic overfill.
Boom. Probably
or guys
was going for.
Guys can wear thongs too.
All right, so this is where we're going. So it's not necessarily about it's not just about friction of rubbing thongs together. It's the friction.
Are you overfilling
the tension? Them? It's the tension. Yeah, it's the tension that you're putting the thong under.
How much pressure you're putting on them.
So like you said, another example we used in the past, if you have 1 billion thongs and they're all being stretched to their limit, pretty damn hot.
Yeah. All that stretching is more friction. Yep.
And on a particular body, you got to think what the pressure is, where the focus and pressure is of that thong. How tight it's going to be and where it's really going to be tight in certain spots. The heat from that itself.
That's where you get diamonds.
This is really where our podcast really separates itself from everybody else.
Absolutely.
Is we give you the stuff you wouldn't think about, and that's 100% right. It's completely accurate. It makes perfect sense, but stuff you wouldn't even think about until you hear it from us, and then you realize, well, these guys really know how this world works. And you're right, we do.
That's why I call it upper echelon, above board. We go above and beyond to make people really find the finer points of the book, the facets, the hidden gems, the diamonds, as Tim stated.
Yeah. And it's all just from those thongs, pressure, being pressurized right above that hip bone,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we do, we get, one of the limited amount of information on slippage is in this chapter. So he's like, every year or so, some careless sympathist with a strong alarm channeled enough heat through a bad link to spike his body temperature and drive himself fever mad. Dalt told us one extreme case where a student managed to cook himself from the inside out. I mentioned the last Manette the day after Dal shared the story with our class. I expected him to join me in some healthy scoffing, but it turned out Manette had actually been a student back when it had happened. Smelled like pork, Manette said grimly. Damned to sing. Felt bad for him, of course, but you can only feel so much pity for an idiot. Little slippage here and there you hardly notice, but he must have slipped 200,000 thongs inside 2 seconds. Manette shook his head, not looking up from the piece of tin he was engraving. Whole wing of mains reeked. Nobody could use the rooms for a year.
Yeah, that's pretty wild to. Well, that's pretty wild to consider if you really picture you're at this school, you know what happened. If you were there or not, you know what happened, and you can smell that someone cooked themselves.
Yeah.
And then that smells there for a year. And every time you smell it, you're like, oh, fuck. You like get the chills, man. Like, or like Dan, who's
hungry,
a fucking cyborg. I want some pork. You got kebabs? Yeah. Smells like kebab.
I am in the mood for barbecue.
Dude opens a barbecue spot just to like cash in on the smell he's carrying around.
Yeah. Some dude sets up shop selling pork right next to the place.
Little pork cart, little kebab cart.
Everybody's
right
just like constantly walking by. Like, I don't know why. Every time I walk by Maine's lately, I'm in the mood for a good pulled pork sandwich.
Jesus. Well, but this was something that we've talked about, the guy ripping his arm off, but I hadn't I hadn't considered the difference between thermal and kinetic slippage. And so that's the difference that they point out here, is that thermal slippage is more common. And this is what happens with, the heat and people getting the binder's chills and stuff. But then the idea of kinetic slippage, and this, I think Manette is the one that talks about it, where, he's kind of talking about the guy was stupid enough to cook himself. Well, this other guy was stupid enough to rip his arm off, thinking he can lift a cart. It kind of brings the question to me. So if he's doing this successfully, he needs to understand the cart, or does he need to understand gravity better? How could he do this more successfully without ripping his arm off?
The only way it really makes sense to me without any further explanation is that he linked two things, and the weight of it, just like a piece of chalk and a coin weigh like 6 pounds. Like he increased the weight so much on this thing that whatever he tried to lift, the weight was so heavy that it just immediately ripped his fucking arm off.
And he had it in his hand.
Yeah. I don't think he tried to pick it up. I think he linked something that was in his hand, and when he tried to lift up, it just the weight was intense, and so it immediately just ripped his freaking arm off. That's the only way it makes sense to me without further information. But it still leaves, the questions, which we've already, we talked about enough. But
well, I'll go into
how
you
could use this negative slippage.
Yeah, I'll go into that a little bit, but I'll wait for a minute in terms of, it's just sort of questions to dial in a little bit more. But I did want to mention, again, Al-Sadal is a good teacher, right? So as soon or before, they're doing all these calculations on enthalpy and getting into like the like charts and equations and about having to deal with this type of sympathy before it gets too boring. He turns it into a competition.
Yeah.
And then this is when we get into the dueling. And it's funny, man, because reading it through again, it's like, oh yeah, so that was the utility in the dueling. You just kind of accept, at least in my mind, I just kind of accept, oh yeah, that's right, they get into dueling. And then you realize like Fenton and these other ones, they're kind of they're just behind Fenton and somebody else they mentioned. We always remember Fenton as the guy that's just behind Kvothe, is the closest to him, even though he's wiping the floor with everybody. But yeah, it was interesting because like I kind of forgot that was the utility with the dueling. Like it had, you understand there's a reason behind it, but I didn't make that clearer connection until it was pointed out again.
Yeah, livening up the class, and also, they could talk all they want about, malfeasance isn't done, but, there's a reason why they train all these kids how to defend themselves, because sure shit, if you get in the real world, teaching this many arcanists, some of them are going to use it for bad fucking purposes. And it's just fucking, that's, human nature.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because kind of going off of what the examples they gave before of lighting a candle in a different room and all these other things. Now he's talking about lighting a candle you've never actually seen that's in an unknown location, and then contests of precision and contests of finesse, focus, and control, and then kind of dialing that stuff into a more precise. It's very important because we figure out he's trying to control his body temperature later. And he's trying to boil his blood basically without boiling his blood. He's trying to heat his body without taking it too far. And the reason we can, again, I mean, you could just state it and you could just kind of, but the way he does it, it's literally you can actually, I mean, as close as you can understand it. And it's quite an accomplishment. I mean, for Rothfuss to be able to walk us to that point and then be able to understand it and just get much more of a clear, I guess payoff could be the word, but just really to be able to have it illustrated in a more accurate way. It's much more tangible. It's fucking great, man. It's like more acute,
Yeah. Like, I mean, he gives you the basics where you can, he gives you a few enough details where you could picture Kvothe going through a process where he's learning exactly how hard he has to push himself to light a candle, to get enough heat to light a candle, or to do an extra step. And so he's learning, the different gauges of how much power he has to put into an activity, and he's seeing what it does to his body so that, when he's doing it to himself, you've laid enough groundwork where you could see this kid's been practicing on this type of thing for a year, where it's dangerous, but you could see where he would have enough control to use it in a useful way without screwing himself over and killing himself.
Oh yeah. So actually a really good example of exactly that is, so despite my recent trip to the medica for heat exhaustion, I melted a hole through a block of ice in a distant room. Despite 2 nights of scant sleep, I raised the temperature of a pint of mercury exactly 10 degrees. Despite my throbbing bruises and the stinging itch of my bandaged arm, I tore the King of Spades in half while leaving the other cards in the deck untouched. So this is what Criss Angel does. Right?
Yeah.
He's just doing a depth sympathy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, it's real magic.
So next time you hang out with Criss Angel, with like the thong talk will be interesting. He can really go somewhere.
One of the things.
That's probably why he's so good.
That always blows my mind is like you have real life musicians doing real life magic, and they're not utilized more. Like that guy should be utilized as more than just a sideshow. Like he could be doing things to change, the very fabric of the world. And he's just wasted on doing little sideshows for people.
Yeah,
it's entertaining, but.
Yeah, why isn't Criss Angel working with Elon Musk? I mean, these guys should be at the hip.
Yeah.
Right? Combined powers.
He could probably make a spaceship with his mind.
Hey, just to go back, I wanted to reiterate what you guys are saying. So I find it really fascinating that this concept of, and it's not explained far enough, but in my imagination, it's kind of like, okay, there is a math to it, the number of thongs, precise measurement of heat that it takes to do a certain thing, or, there was thalmic and then there was kinetic, which would be, a force. And so that would be the mathematics side of it. And then you take into account the focus of it. And I don't know how you'd quantify, the focus or, the amount of focus, but apparently
the way he quantifies it is he's like, when he talks about all the different things he did, he says, all these things I did in less than 2 minutes, despite the fact that Fenton set the whole of his alar to oppose me. It is not for nothing they came to call me Kvothe the Arcane. My alar was like a blade of Ramsden steel. So you get the way the way he's describes like the focus and Kvothe's ability to focus on things is in a comparison to other characters. So like Fenton's number 2 in this class, and he lists all these complex and very specific things that he's able to do, and he's able to do them in 2 minutes while this other dude is completely trying to oppose him. Or like when Will and Zim are trying to set down the 2 coins, or the coins that he's holding in the air when they're teaching Denna. Like he gives demonstrations of the alar through demonstrations of what he's able to do versus other people.
Yeah, I like the opposing. To me, it in my head, it's like I'm doing a math equation where I have an opposing force that's acting against whatever, first of all, the kinetic or thalmic energy that it takes to do whatever X, and you have, anyway, it's just really, I find it very interesting.
What you're talking about, and so these examples of like ripping a card in half and the rest don't get touched, or a block of ice, a mile away and putting a pinpoint hole in it, those things would really help if this was a television show. You want those exact things, these things that show the exact precision of what he's actually able to do, and getting better and better and better and gradually better compared to what Fenton's able to do. And
yeah, and you can
best.
Like on a TV show, you can show like Fenton's second best, but you can also show the frustration that these people have and that they can't stop him. And then, then you got to ramp it up where, teacher's like, all right, next time we're setting 2 people against you. And it's not the top 2, but, we'll start with the bottom 2 and then they'll work their way up. But there's, you're able to kind of show where he's at by comparing and contrasting him to other people, his peers, and showing exactly what he's able to do.
Well, and you especially get it like right here with Elxadal treats him like a colleague, just like Kilvin was. He talks to him like, it's actually rather impressive what you're able to do, and which is why we're going to put 2 guys up against you. It speaks to just where he's at. And again, this kind of ties back into what we've talked about with his lineage and what, his natural capabilities, seem to speak more volume or add a lot more to it than just, the fact that he's doing all this shit when he's injured. He's barely slept. He fell out of a fucking window and he's killing shit. The dude's fucking great. This is like his first day learning this shit and he's fucking murdering it.
And Dal even tells him, it's been years since I've had a student go undefeated for so long. Will anyone even bet against you anymore? I shook my head. That dried up a long time ago. Price of fame. Dal smiled. But, so, they give you plenty of compare and contrast for, how he's moving up in the world. And you get that also, too, when he goes against Devi and things along those lines. And then also just in, like, little subtle mentions of, what masters are capable of doing, like when they're trying to figure out who who might be doing malfeasance against them. They mention like, only Dal or one other guy would be capable of using hair to do, what's happening to him. So you get that's how he usually sets on how powerful people are. Is he compares known quantities against each other.
Well, and we get it in a minute. We get it right here where he's just like, he warns them like, you really shouldn't be coming to class if you're not feeling well, and you certainly shouldn't be dueling. Sympathy of this sort stresses the body and mind. You shouldn't risk compounding that with an illness. So he's giving him these lessons, but we're thinking in our minds, yeah, but this is Kvothe, and Kvothe's like, he's always kind of downplaying it, like, I just need sleep, I'll be fine, all that, all that stuff. What we've just seen him collapse, right? How weary he was, and he's getting reminders of the fact that he looks a little bit more ragged. I mean, they say right here that he looks ragged or weary, and what I saw here also is this emphasis of a Loden. So when they talk about, so what you were talking about, who's capable of what, and it leads into, and Dal kind of where Dal's giving, some real compliment to a Loden, where because they start at, they start going down the road of talking about naming and what it is, and I like how Kvothe is trying to voice his frustration of trying to be in a class with a Loden, and Dal doesn't really understand what a Loden's doesn't really understand what he's doing anyway. So it's kind of,
he gets Master Loden. He's like, yeah, studying with Master Loden isn't what I expected. Dal nodded. He can be difficult. Question sprang up in my mind. Do you know any names, Master Dal? Nodded solemnly. What are they? I pressed. He stiffened slightly, then relaxed as he turned his hands back and forth over the fire. That isn't really a polite question. Well, not impolite. It's just the sort of question you don't ask. Like asking a man how often he makes love to his wife. But, yeah, so you get a little bit of the, they keep these things secret. It's kind of plays it off on like, yeah, it's kind of an old tradition, where when there's more danger between, by knowing these type of things, but it's still, he's a little uneasy about telling people what his strengths are, because he doesn't want, people to be able to use it against him.
No, it's great. It's because he also doesn't tell him. He tells him fire, but he doesn't tell him the other one.
No.
So even in practice, he doesn't tell him. And I love it when Kvothe's response is, "Oh, only two."
Yeah. Like, how many you know?
2? You fucking chump. Yeah, it's a good good response.
2?
Oh, and
how many you know? Well, fucking dipshit.
I like that. I like that it kind of I don't know, broadens out the sense of what naming is, and in that it's everyone's ignorant to it. There is no class.
It's not what it once was.
Taught a class. Yeah, and even though the people who can actually do it, the brilliant people who can name fire, they don't know why they can. He can't explain it at all. He just knows that he understands fire very well. Shove your hands into a pot of hot coals.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting that he can't explain. And he even admits, he's like, well, you can go to Loden for those questions, because I don't really. And I actually like how Kvothe says, well, and so these are huge parts here where they talk about when he says fire, and then Kvothe says, oh, so that's it? The name of fire is fire? He's like, well, that's not what I actually said. Some part of you just filled in a familiar word. And Kvothe goes, oh, my sleeping mind translated it? And Dal's like, sleeping mind?
Huh?
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And he's like, that's what a Loden calls the parts of us that knows names. So that's a cool thing to also build out what a Loden's doing. A Loden is actually building some sort of I don't want to say curriculum, but because it might just be this is what he does for himself. But it is quite effective. I mean, it helps us understand what he's talking about. So I thought that was cool, because that tells us this isn't something everybody else is teaching. This is coming from a Loden. Sleeping mind is a Loden's thing, because Dal doesn't know about it. So right. I thought that was pretty cool. I guess I hadn't picked up on the parameters of that difference, but yeah, it's great, man. And this is a huge chapter in terms of understanding, naming and understanding sympathy.
Well, what's also wild is, when Kvothe is like, well, it seems kind of useless, basically. And he's like, I can do that shit with sympathy. He's like, not without a source. And like you really could see where it could come in handy when he fights the bandits, because he wears down by doing all these things. He doesn't have a good source, so he's having to pull from his blood, and he's just draining himself and giving himself binder's chills. That's not under threat through naming. And the fact that you could create a fire and then command it to not burn you, you could just set a room ablaze and kill everybody in that room, and you'd be fine. The flame wouldn't hurt you. It would just torch everybody else. Like, that's insanely powerful.
Yeah. That's when we see that, when we get to see that, it's like, oh, okay. And I love that Rothfuss leaves it to us. Like, he gives us the pieces, he gives us those images, and then kind of leaves it to our mind to be able to picture, okay, so how this could be applicable, and the mind can go wild in terms of.
If he can just look at a brazier and just command it to light a fire, he should be able to just do that with anybody, and just boom, set on fire and just torch people. Like, it just seems insanely powerful, knowing like the name of something like fire.
So just before he goes into this, I thought it was kind of funny. Well, it's funny, but he brings up he's talking about his frustration with Elodin. He says, yesterday, what Elodin lectured about? The difference between being naked and being nude. And Dahl just bursts into laughter. And he's like, I'm serious, man. I fought to be in his class, but now all I can think about is all the time I'm wasting there, and then could spend on more practical things. I think, I could be wrong. Difference between naked and being nude is the erection, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's 100% it.
It's the question of erection. But yeah, so then so then Dahl does go into does display actually putting his hand into fire as if it's nothing, which is fucking wild to consider the implications of what that could then mean.
Yeah, it's it's always an interesting chapter. I really look forward to Kvothe getting, a couple of names under his belt, and we get a better understanding of the capabilities of naming, because just from what Dow demonstrated, it seems insanely powerful.
So that's kind of what I was bringing up earlier, that I think that this brings up a question of, so understanding the power over something, it's still obviously innocuous in our minds because we don't, how do you describe that to such a degree, but it is controlling and having that power over whatever it is. We've seen it with the wind, we see it later in the book with the wind, especially when he's at the Adem tree. But names reflect true understanding of a thing, and when you truly understand a thing, you have power over it. Kvothe protests, but fire isn't a thing unto itself. It's merely an exothermal chemical reaction. And then Dahl draws in a breath and looks like he's going to try to explain, instead laughs, and then says, I don't have the wit to explain it to you. Ask Elodin. He's the one who claims to understand these things. I just work here. Which is pretty interesting to where that puts Elodin in this world. Again, it also does seem, the way they treat him, it's not as if they're all going to.
I don't agree with Kvothe when he's like, it's not a thing, it's a reaction. It's like, okay, well, then a chair is just molecules and atoms, and they're all bouncing off each other. Like, nothing's a thing if fire's not a thing.
Well, I was going to say, so that's one of the other implications in my mind from this is that, so fire, earth, water, the stone. So I guess what we're saying is these elements aren't just things. Right? I mean, that's kind of what you're saying, right? So
they exist. So
yeah.
I mean, they are
the wind.
things.
They are,
they're elements. That's the thing they are.
Yeah.
So I just don't agree with him. I think when Kvothe's going down that route, it's like, dude, you're being super pedantic.
Well, yeah, that's what's interesting about his character. I mean, he's complicated in those ways because he so badly wants to grasp. He wants to make everything concrete. That's what he's doing here. He's trying to make it concrete. He does that with a load, and that's why you keep, stop trying to grab my tits type thing, because he's always trying to make it concrete. Yet he's like an artist. I mean, he's a musician.
To me, it's like
he's a weird dynamic.
Fire's not a thing. Wind's not a thing. Okay, well, describe what fire is. It's an exothermal, whatever chemical reaction. It's like, okay, well, you can control that. Like, call it whatever you want to call it. The fucking thing is with naming is you can control it. If you know the name of that chemical reaction, you can control that chemical reaction.
But if you just want to go out and say it's an exothermal chemical reaction, okay, exothermal is a thing. Chemical's a thing. The reaction.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All of this shit is a thing.
It's getting getting super pedantic when you're going down that route.
Yeah, it's I think it's more of like a something that's not tangible. It's a reaction. It's not it's like a change of state. Yeah, things do change.
That's what we're saying. Yeah,
I'm in agreement, but I'm saying I'm somewhat taking Kvothe's side in that it's hard to understand how you can control something when it's not a tangible. It's not molecules. It's a happening.
I think what I'm saying. I think it, so it kind of like suggests a larger embodiment of like connectivity within certain elements of the world, like in terms of like life experience in itself, right? So I think that's what it is. It's kind of, and what's I think fucking beautiful about that exists in our world, right? So it's the fucking Matrix.
Once you go down the route, once you go down the route, like, and you're like, you can control the wind. Like then once I accept that as a given, like I'm going to fully accept that you control fire or iron or ice or water or any of these things, because it's like you can feel the wind, you can feel the fire, you can feel all these things. Why wouldn't you be able to control them?
Well, here's what I'm saying. Not there yet is what we're saying. He's just not there yet.
Yeah, he's not.
No, I know, but he's the way he's like bringing it up is in a pedantic way.
Well,
yeah, it's like, well, it's not a thing. Like, well, who gives a shit? Call it whatever you want to call it. Like, if you can, why?
That's why
call the wind, but not fire.
I think that's why Oxidol bows out. He's like, well, fuck it then.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna try to do this with you.
But if I can just add this in, so because I do kind of understand if you want to know the nature of iron, okay, it's got a weight, a number of certain molecules and it's iron, but
it's on the periodic table,
right? Right. So if you compare that to gravity's not a thing. You see what I'm saying? Is. Or what Kvothe? It's not a tangible thing.
It's it's a
You can't grab it. What's to say you need to be able to grab something? Like the first thing he sees named is the wind. So like at that point, like it's like, okay, well, so naming clearly doesn't require it to be like some physical object that I can grab.
See, but wind is a physical object. It's
not. I can't grab the wind. I mean, you can't.
Oh, but you can feel it.
You can feel a fire
with your hand.
I can feel a fire much more.
Oxygen and nitrogen.
I can feel a fire much more forcefully.
Well, so what you're saying is you can harness it. Is that what you're saying, Fitz? You can harness the wind. You can harness fire. You can.
No. What I'm saying is, as far as tangible elements, wind has tangible elements.
So is fire.
No, it
Stick
doesn't.
your face near one.
No, it doesn't.
I would argue fire has more than wind does.
Well, fire is the heat, the thermal energy that's created from a chemical reaction, and when that chemical reaction happens, the elements change. So they go from one thing to another. Now, none of that, whether it's in one state or the other, is the fire itself. You see what I'm saying? And we're kicking a dead horse around, but I to some extent I understand what Kvothe is saying, that it's not compared to gravity. It's not something that has elemental value.
I'm more just like on Denna's tip, where when he's talking about, like, he's trying to figure out how that Dracus can breathe fire, and she's like, I don't know, dude, fucking eats trees, needs to put out fire. It makes perfect sense. He eats trees, he can burn fire. Yeah, once you accept you can call the name of the wind, like, why wouldn't you be able to call the name of fire? Like, why would more of my questions would be like, what can't you call the name of?
Yeah.
Not, why can I call the name of fire? Why can I call the name of anything? If I'm going to ask that question, but like, if I accept that I can call the name of the wind, sure. Yeah. Why wouldn't you be able to call the name? What would be interesting is more, what can't you call the name of, and why can't you call the name of it? Which is a more interesting question that I wish you would ask, because I think copper is one of those things you can't name, and I want to know why. And it seems like, though, that there are very few things you can't name. Seems like you can name pretty much anything.
It seems like copper is going to be the last shield, the last defense mechanism. You know what I'm saying? Or it's going to be like Kvothe is the only one that will have any control over it. Therefore, he is the key. He is the one.
That's a good point.
It feels that way. I mean, why else do what he's doing so far?
Like copper may be way more difficult to understand and name. And Dan, I'm not saying that I don't hear what you're saying about if you understand that you can, or it allows for you to further going about it. I'm just kind of taking Kvothe's side on this thing, where I understand what he's saying, and that how can I understand something that isn't X, Y, or Z? So, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, it shouldn't be something that's easy to find. It shouldn't be something that's easy to just be like, well, this is the way it is. It's not that simple. There's a lot of gray matter. It's not a dead horse. It's very much a living horse that you can smack around.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And who doesn't want that?
Learn how to name horses and send Ambrose down a really bad day.
Well, Kvothe
I'd have a horse named Buck.
Kvothe has a knack for naming horses and naming them accurately and not even knowing it.
Good point.
But it gets what we just got into, all this heavy shit, and then he goes to Threp and just completely lightens the mood within the next scene. There's a lot in this chapter.
Yeah.
The one thing I did want to sort of reiterate, I think I already said it, but the fact that he does say ask Elodin does suggest mad power and respect on Elodin. Or there seems to be a respect, but also we don't get this fucking guy. I get that feeling from a lot of the masters, where it's just like they don't really know how to take him. And maybe nobody does. I don't know. He's a fucking dope character. It's great.
Yeah, he's the best. I don't have a ton to say as far as his interaction with Threp. I mean, he talks to him about Denna's patron, and you get, some semi-plausible explanations for why he might be secretive, but they're clearly not right. I mean, they're guesses from Threp, but we know enough about the situation to know that he's not trying to fucking get in her panties or trying to show her off at the right time to be like, look what I did. Like, no, this dude's this dude's got some plan, some major plan. He's got some major purpose for her. And she's got, clearly she's looking for something out of this relationship as well. She's got a plan, and she's looking for power and information that she can utilize for some reason we don't know yet. But we can pretty safely recognize that Threp, even though these are plausible excuses for what the patron could be doing, they're all, they're not touching on what's actually going on. It's way more complex than what he's hinting at, what he thinks it could be.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, he gets real validation, I guess, for his concerns from Threp, because he's like, yeah, this doesn't sound shady as shit.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. I did think this Duchess Samista sounds like an interesting gal. She sounds like fun. I don't know what she was up to, but it sounds like she was a pretty bawdy gal, huh?
Yeah, I just kind of
going after
it. Instead of a grabby dude, it just seems like a grabby woman.
Yes, it seems like she leveraged her influence to get what she wanted. What she wanted was grabby, a grabby gal.
Yeah, I've definitely met women like that, and it's very different when a woman is that aggressive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's funny.
They're like
it's a little bit
just standing. I've had at a bar just standing there, and like a girl come up and just grab me by my crotch, and it's like, whoa, you are really forward. Like, this is how you introduce yourself? Holy shit, girl.
This is how she shakes hands, I guess.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's more
right.
That's more forward than Artemis.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, she puts Artemis to shame. I've had those interactions where it's like, holy shit, man, like this is a line that I would never cross. like I cannot imagine doing the reverse of this situation.
You can't imagine, at least not if you have to imagine right afterwards going to jail.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. And then for me, it was just, because of the, it's a completely different dynamic. I just laughed. I was like, holy shit, girl.
Yeah, right. Dan was like,
I appreciate the offer. Thank you.
Hands
but
off the merchandise. I'm calling the cops.
I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass, but, hey, I appreciate the offer. And, maybe some other time. Thank you.
Thank you for the compliment.
Yeah. Yeah, you made me feel real good about myself today. Thank you. So, yeah, that's kind of how I picture the old Duchess.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, I did find it very, very interesting how he gave us, how he sort of eventually made us realize this is more than binder's chills. You know what I'm saying? Because what we were being told was binder chills. We were learning about binder's chills. We were getting more specifically about binder's chills and what the sources of them are. And that's what we're thinking there's something going on with Kvothe. We know there's something happening there. And then this whole thing with him having to jump in the water and...
Well, this doesn't seem like binder's chill because he gets hot.
No, I mean, but leading into it, it's like it gradually changes as the paragraphs go. You know what I'm saying? Like it gradually... I don't know. I was reading...
The next attack is like binder's chills. He gets real cold. But this attack... he starts feeling hot. You don't know what the fuck's going on.
Well, that's what I mean. So
fairly certain, like the first time I would read this, I would have no idea like why his body would just start getting hot. I wouldn't be thinking that he's getting attacked.
No,
you don't know what's going
exactly.
on.
No, that's what I mean. It's interesting because as he's walking, he begins to feel an unpleasant prickling heat running up his arm. And then at first it's like, oh, is it the stitches, blah, blah, blah. And he has to do all this problem solving in his mind. And then instead of it going away, it starts to spread. And then he's sweating. And then he feels like he has a fever. So he's like, trying to figure out like how to deal with this, and goes in the water and all that stuff. And then the way he describes that the heat moving through his body, like there's a fire inside him trying to find a way out, was really interesting. I mean, to me, I thought that was fucking great.
And the fact that he talked about he brings up the next when he starts feeling the cold, or he when he's talking to Sim and Will about it, when he talks about when he had the little drop of that chemical when he was making the emitters.
Yeah.
And, then you're like, oh shit, did something get on him? And that's where your mind is first going to. So it does throw you a little off where you're not immediately thinking someone's attacking him. But then, obviously it's revealed someone's attacking him.
Well, and then, I mean, it becomes quite clear as well, and I'm getting a little bit ahead, but he goes to Mola, and Mola's like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You're fine. Shut up. Like, it was kind of funny that she just fucking brushes it off, but brushing it off because people don't do that.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen anymore, and that really puts it into perspective of how rare it actually is.
Well, and plus a brief feeling of heat, like, okay, well, I started feeling hot. Like, I've had that feeling.
It's not just
like
a brief feeling of heat. It burns his skin. It burns him across his chest and his arm.
Yeah.
Literally burns him.
Yeah, across his chest. But does Mola know that? I was referring to.
Yeah, she's like
Mola blowing it off.
I think she says maybe it's like a rash or something. But yeah, like, no, it's not just a feeling. He gets physically burnt, and she still blows it off because she's not thinking anyone would do this kind of thing. And so very short-sighted of her to just blow it off when someone has a burn mark across their chest. It's just probably a rash. Like, okay, where the fuck did a rash come from, and why did my body get all fucking hot? Well, you're just paranoid. I have a fucking gas mark on my chest. What are you talking about? I'm paranoid. I have physical evidence.
Yeah, that kind of brings her down. Like, Arwell needs to get involved in this one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's still fucking thinking about that date with Sim. Get her fucking head out of the clouds. But yeah, that's it for chapter 22 for me.
Yeah.
Okay, then, that takes us to chapter 23, titled Principles. In this chapter, we start off at Anchors. Kvothe tells his friends of his recent ailments. Suddenly, he experiences a severe chill between music sets and heads to his room with the help of Will. Kvothe uses sympathy to warm himself, but he is quickly attacked again and stabbed. The three realize what's happening as Kvothe enters the Heart of Stone. Kvothe is forced to tell the boys of his deal with Davy as they try to decipher how and who is trying to kill Kvothe. For Kvothe's protection, Will invites him and Sim to stay with him in his room overnight. Kvothe goes to send his blood in differing directions, but before he can, Ari shows up and calls him her Siridae. Guys?
Yeah, so, it starts off where they're going through they're trying to piece together what it might be. And obviously we just talked about that, where they're like, could be remnants of the plumb bob from being factored incorrectly, and, just bad alchemy being done, or, metal poisoning, things along those lines. Mola completely dismissing it. But yeah, then when he starts playing, and he starts feeling good, like he's like, my music has always been the best remedy for my dark moods. As I sang, even my bruises seemed to pain me less. But then he's like, then I felt a chill, as if a strong winter wind was blowing down the chimney behind me. I fought off a shiver and finished the last verse of Applejack, which I'd finally played to keep Sim happy. But yeah, then it's a great description, because you're like, what the fuck is going on? Because he's like immediately walks back to the table, tells him, hey, go get a pinch of the ash from the fire, and Will take me up to my room. And then he's talking about shivering so violently that he can't even walk, and you get the Will's reaction like, dude, we got to go to the medica. And Will knows full well what that would mean. But he's so panicked, he's like, we got to take you there. And Kvothe, refuses that. And then Will's got to pretty much carry him to the room. So you get a real, like, what the fuck is going on moment, in this, especially, the first time you're going through this, when you're just like, what is happening to this kid?
So there's shortly thereafter, Dan, there's a real strong backbone to your argument that there's a hole in the story. He has Sim get him light a candle off the fire, and he uses that brazier to warm himself up, and so he does. But as soon as he starts to get cooked, he says, "I immediately broke my alar."
Yeah.
So that's when I read that, I immediately thought there's Dan's hole right there. That you got to break that alar. Immediately let go. And you're fine.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, in a way, because the bindings hold, right? He has to break them, so they hold. At least that's kind of how it read to me. So he's heating up and heating up and heating up. So his bindings are holding, and then I broke both bindings as quickly as you jerk your hand away from a hot iron stove. So not only does he describe it in a way that he broke his bindings, he did it as quickly as you would take your hand away from a iron stove. So almost instinctively.
Yeah.
So it even fights even worse the devil's advocate role that we tried to play on his lungs filling up is the idea that he's clenching his fist. Yeah. So it hurt. That really, when I read that, I had the same reaction where I'm like,
his instinct
damn,
was
man,
to let it go. When
worse.
It caused him pain, the instinct was to let it go immediately. And I mean, to me, it's clearly a hole, and that chapter in the first book, that's clearly a hole. Like I don't see any way around it. Unless Rothfuss could come up with something to blow our nips off. To me, it's a hole.
I just kind of wish he'd blow on my nips.
Yeah, he does that at book signings, I'm pretty sure.
You have him sign your chest and just make sure the ink gets dry.
Hey, could you sign with this marker and then write across the nips and then just blow on them to dry
blow it dry. I just need it to dry before I put my shirt back on.
Picturing this is so absurd.
Jesus. Like, no, I cannot do that.
Oh shit. But yeah, that's definitely, I mean, there's a few really cool things that happen there, which is we get more acutely how what we just learned is applicable and applied by Kvothe in real time to defend his life, to basically, and it plays out so great too, because what's happening here, it's one of those things where you're like, oh shit, he's helpless, his friends are helpless, like he could be fucked, and then he takes total control.
Yeah,
right? Like he totally, well, and it does play out a little bit further, but he takes total control over the situation, which is really interesting. But then we get the problem there. What I thought was interesting as we move a little bit further is when he does start to bleed. I mean, it just kind of brings the question up in my mind if Ambrose went too far. Could he have been more successful, fucking with, I know he doesn't necessarily know it's Kvothe, but whoever he's fucking with would have had a chance to be more successful if he would have just stuck with the way he was fucking with him. You know what I mean? Because with the blood, because he's confused, he's starting to figure out what's going on, but he's confused. Once the blood comes, now he knows exactly what the fuck is going on.
Yeah. Well, for Ambrose's perspective is he's likely thinking this guy doesn't understand magic, and so he's not going to understand what the fuck is happening to him at all. Even if you stab him, he's still not going to. He's probably going to be thinking that a demon is inside his body.
Yeah.
So, an Arcanist is going to be able to finally put 2 and 2 together. But if you're just some random dude that doesn't understand, like you just think about how shocked Denna is when, they move a coin across the table. Or like when Dan and them see him light a fire, like their fucking nips are blowing off. So like you're changing the temperature of their body and, stabbing them, and there's no one in the room. There's no one there. Like, they wouldn't know what the fuck's going on.
Well, even Sim, I mean, Sim's witnessing this happening and he's still denying it's malfeasance.
Yeah.
Because, this sort of thing just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And it's fucking happening, dude.
Yeah.
I really like the, and we see this over and over again, but Kvothe lower himself into the heart of stone. And it was like, there's been chaos for the last few chapters here where we don't really know what's going on. And as soon as, like you said, Tim, as soon as he gets stabbed, Kvothe knows what's going on. And just like that, he lowers himself in the heart of stone. And it's like everything becomes even keeled again. All the waters become calm because Kvothe knows what's happening. And so now all he has to do is raise his alar to block the, whoever's working against him. It's just really a reassuring thing that to know that when Kvothe knows the situation, he's able to sustain or quell it.
It's interesting to consider what he's actually doing. You know what I mean? Like he's got this. He's putting up a defense mechanism. He's having to be on alert to protect his body. From what? From this thing that's trying to happen to him. So if nothing's happening to him, he's just, I'm trying to picture like what is it? You're just standing upright. You know what I mean?
He breaks his heart or he breaks his mind into 3 parts and puts two watchdogs around his. I really like that, man.
Yeah, it's similar to when he lets a part of his mind write the song for Florian, where he just lets that go, and it's just going on in the back of his head. And, so he's got like 2 parts that he's not focused on, he's not thinking about. He's just like, you 2 parts of my mind, go to work, do this, and he just puts them to a task, and then that leaves him to be able to just focus on something else. It's a crazy... obviously there's no corollary in our world to that, but it's
why
a
not,
crazy talent
multitasking
that you can do in their world.
Yeah, multitasking. I'm good with this. I'll take this on. I could use this. There'd be utility in this for me.
I don't know why he doesn't do it more often. Like, all right, I'm going to take these 2 parts of my mind and I'm going to have them do my homework. And then I'm going to go out on the town and, fucking do my thing and have fun. Get fucking drunk. Yeah,
go find Denna. Right? Just always be looking for her.
Like, you guys, and then you can just go ask them, how did the day go? Did you get my homework done? Tell me what you found out.
It sounds like more like a clone situation.
I mean, that's what it sounds like when he describes it. Like,
he's a schizo. He's a schizophrenic, man.
Yeah.
Multi-personalities.
He's got these different pieces of his mind taking care of things for him and playing jokes on him. That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I like when they're trying to figure it out. And again, when they start, what did you do with the bandages after you stitched them up? I burned them, Sim said defensively. I'm not an idiot. Well, I mean, like, it's a reasonable question for you, buddy. Like, sorry, but you do enough. You put your foot in your mouth enough, then we're gonna have to question you on some of these minor details.
There were a couple things that I did want to point out that I thought. Well, I think it's worth pointing out. I was talking about visuals for television series. The spreading of like things happening in his body, and then the fucking sprouting of a hole of
Yeah.
blood gushing. That shit would be nuts. Yeah, that would be pretty great to show that visual on a television series. Would be pretty amazing. I also did like, because I think we just went past it, but I also did like when Sim's like he's like, dude, Arcanists don't do this. Like, this is nuts. And then he's like, to Kvothe, he's like, why are you smiling? And Kvothe's relieved.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I was worried I had this poisoning or some other thing.
Yeah.
It's just
This is
somebody
someone trying to kill me.
Yeah.
I was
that's great.
thinking the same thing.
Yeah, man, that's Kvothe is the I mean, it's not he's a hero, man. It's the version of the heroic character that we like so much, where it's just like, I can deal with this shit.
Yeah.
This I can
This
deal
kid
with.
grew up
That's
on the
something you can
streets,
deal with.
man. He's like, man, I spent 3 years thinking someone was going to kill me every day. Like, this it's no thing. This is something I can control. I can fight against this. But yeah, I like the way Rothfuss throws you off the scent of Ambrose, because he has Will, who's been the voice of reason in so many situations, and he makes a very reasonable argument why it wouldn't be Ambrose. He's like, Ambrose would have just ratted you out. If he knew it was your blood, he would have just told on you. He would have went to the masters and you'd be done. So he's like, you know, and like he wouldn't just like attack Kvothe, because, you know, if Kvothe did, you know, die, and, you know, Ambrose killed Kvothe and Kvothe died from you know, malfeasance, Ambrose is going to be fucking public enemy number one. He's going to be the first person they look to. So it's just, Ambrose, if he knew he had Kvothe's blood, he would not be doing what he's doing. So it's a reasonable conclusion that it can't be Ambrose, because Ambrose wouldn't do it, you know, in this route. They just don't think that, well, what if Ambrose doesn't know that it's Kvothe's blood? That's the one piece they don't put together.
Yeah, they don't realize that they don't consider, that Ambrose didn't consider that it was Kvothe.
Yeah.
Well, and I like the way you pointed out too is great. Well, and the way Rothfuss does it is great, because they argue back and forth about it, and he brings it up multiple ways of arguing the point. Where, dude, he hires people to do shit. He doesn't do his own dirty work. And he gives examples of that, and then even goes as far as, you know, well, he just gives multiple points in terms of, you know, he does these things indirectly. That's, you know, kind of his whole approach. But yeah, it's cool, because it does get you to where you're considering, well, fuck, man, then who is doing this? And then you start going down the road of, oh shit, could it be Devi? Which seems odd, because why? But then they give pretty good fucking reasons as to why. And dude, the way it plays out is so good. Like in terms, and I don't go too fast, but I like the way that it's so great, the way we learn at the same time, because we know where they're going when they're talking. Because, like, all right, so how'd the last conversation go? And we're playing it in our minds as Kvothe's explaining it. And then, you know, as he explains it, we realize at the same time that, like, Will and Sim and Kvothe himself realize, oh shit, that's right. She said, you know, she'd sleep with me, and I was like, I just kind of ignored it.
That, you know, we know Devi enough where, and we're, you know, in that situation, it didn't seem like she felt slighted because he turned her down. So I didn't think that was it. What really, like, I'm assuming this is how I felt, because it seems so reasonable to me, is that when he starts to think, like, she wouldn't do this, but she would sell my blood to somebody else for information, like to get into the archives. So she might not be directly attacking me, but if someone offered her access to the archives for my blood, she might do that. And then yeah, I could definitely see her doing that.
Well, we definitely we see her desperation.
Yeah.
So yeah, we see that, well, she's willing to do just about anything for this.
Yeah.
So
like the sex, I think, like that, it's like, nah, you're wrong on that. But the desperation to get in the archives, if he has explained that to Will, I think Will would have been like, yeah, that's why. But he didn't really explain that, so he just jumped to, you know, she's a jilted lover. But no, that's not Devi.
Well, and it's probably been about a year since I read through. So obviously, as you realized a little bit ago, I had forgotten that we find out that it is Ambrose. So I am right close to it. I thought that Ambrose did know that it was Kvothe. The guys kind of convinced me that okay, maybe it's not Ambrose, but inside I'm like, but it's not Devi. It can't be Devi. Why the hell would she do it? I hadn't considered that she would pay for it. While I realized that she could, who wants Kvothe's blood? So then knowing what I know from talking to you guys and about the book, that maybe there's some angelic or Scarpy or something else that I'm just not aware of, that I don't realize. The point I'm trying to make is, what great writing! Just the fact that it was Ambrose, and maybe
answer, and then makes you doubt it, and then it is the obvious answer.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, he layers on all the complications, and they get played out with people that actually care about him. It's not just speculation; they're trying to figure this out.
Yeah,
it's pretty great, man. It's tremendous in terms of the way he writes it, and also, dude, 8-part binding. Debbie can do a fucking 8-part binding. Son of a bitch, man. You start to realize, dude, this.
I think that might be rumor, though.
But no, I mean, she whoops his ass.
She gets to 6, doesn't she?
He does. He does. He gets to 6, and he still can't stop her. So,
yeah, that's
right. I don't know how many pieces she broke her mind into, but she did a lot. She had to do a lot to overcome what he was doing to her.
You could say it's rumor because it's not specifically verified, but he's saying it, and he put it in here, and he's having him say it's an 8-part binding.
He does a lot to build up how powerful Kvothe is thus far in these books, and how he is just stomping the ass out of Fenton, and who's the second best duelist in the school, and he's just fucking stomping this kid, and then Devi fucking stomps him.
She doesn't stomp him, but she gets to the what is it, the fire eater, or the Eventually, when they're in battle, she makes it to.
He can't stop her from getting to that source, even when she didn't have even when he had a better source than her. She had no source. He still couldn't stop her. That's why I say she stomped him. She did not have a source to begin with. She got attacked without knowing she was going to get attacked. Wasn't, prepared for it, directly. But then she was still able to fight him off without a source, and then get a source and get a better source. And then, it was over from there. So it was, she put a whooping to him. There was nothing he could do to stop her. He gave it everything he had.
Yeah, and she kind of just toys with him as part of it too. I mean, she's enraged. She's fucking pissed. But she also just kind of, I remember part of it, there's an element in there where she's just kind of like, I could fucking break you in two right now. I can make you do anything I want to.
She's, said, let go or I'm going to set all your clothes on fire and you're just going to fucking burn to death.
This brings up things that I didn't realize the first time coming through, but what implications does that mean for Devi and who she is, considering that Kvothe could have snapped Fëlorian in two in that way, and then now that I realize that Devi could have done that to Kvothe.
Well, also though, Kvothe, by the time he meets Fëlorian, he's on a different level. He's leveled up. In the situation where he fights Devi, he also is barely sleeping. He's had to keep his alar up for however many days in a row or weeks. Like, he's not in tip-top condition when he goes against Devi. But like we see, he is much more powerful by the time he gets to Fëlorian. And with Fëlorian, it's not sympathy. It's he calls her name.
Yeah.
Right. So that was different. Yeah, that's just different.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's a
but
couple.
I didn't
I
realize.
think it's safe to say probably by the end of book 2, if Devi and Kvothe went at each other, it probably ends differently.
But needless to, regardless, Devi is extremely powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's not fucked with. The other Gaelet, which comes up in another couple chapters, the other Gaelet scared shitless of her. So I mean, she's not to be trifled with. People fear her for good reason.
I'm looking forward to the explanation of why she got kicked out of school, and in what role she plays going forward, because she obviously has an interest in some hidden information at the archives, and it'll be interesting to see what that is.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what role she plays in the overall scheme of things, because I mean, it could just be she's serving her purpose as we see it now, but I feel like there is something more. But because also she's aligned herself to help Kvothe. She helps him with what we're about to get to. So it does seem like she, when she's picked sides, she's been with the good guys, so to speak. Could be the bad guys.
And then Kvothe kind of changes the perception of what's going on when he leaves, when he's like, it's relatively easily to protect yourself from sympathy if you know what you're doing. Someone trying to burn or stab me or draw off my body heat until I lapsed into hypothermia. All those things deal with the simple, direct application of force, so they're easy to oppose. I was safe now that I knew what was happening and kept my defenses up. And then his new concern is that they're going to use his blood to find his location and not use magic, but to just go straight up stabby on him.
Yeah, I wanted to point this out because we just kind of skipped over it. I think it's tremendous to what he does a lot in this group of chapters with Will and Sim and Kvothe. And Kvothe is a bit arrogant because he knows, all right, so I can control this. I'm fine now. So I'm fine, right? And then Sim, he's like, dude, body of God, you're irritating sometimes. What if you're attacked again? And he's like, oh, it's already happened twice while we've been sitting here. It tingles a bit. I'm fine. Honestly, there's a reason why I'm the top ranked duelist in Dahl's class. I'm perfectly safe. As long as you're awake, Willem interjects. And then Kvothe is like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. I do fucking need your help. So it's interesting because it shows the frustration that Sim has with Kvothe, and like, dude, you've put yourself in a fucking position here that you're fucked. You're kind of fucked, and you do actually need help. But then at least Willem, he does him a favor by underplaying it. Like, he makes him admit, no, you're going to need fucking help. And shall we expect you in our rooms tonight? And just kind of, then he just goes into, we're going to do you this fucking favor. We don't have to make a big deal out of it, but this is what's happening now.
Yeah, they're good friends. I
got a
fucking
quick,
do what they got to do.
I got a quick question for you regarding that. So can Will and Sim use their alar to oppose that which they can't see happening in Kvothe?
Yeah, it's just like Kvothe can use his alar to prevent you from lighting another candle on fire. There's no reason that they couldn't use their alar to prevent you from stabbing or lighting Kvothe's body on fire. If you can do it for a candle, why you defend a candle, you should be able to defend a body.
So Kvothe's going to be able to sleep tonight.
Yeah. That's what happens. He goes to sleep, and then they take up they defend him like they would defend a candle.
Yeah. Okay.
So it would just take, you have to protect against, someone stabbing him or setting him on fire or freezing him to death, that kind of thing.
But he does do what we've been talking about. He goes back across the rooftops. Which happens so much all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I guess I underplayed that.
Very prominent, and they don't discuss, the roofing industry near enough. But yeah, I like, Ari comes up to him and he's like, Ari, I called, worried the sight of me, the lightning splashes, and he's like, Ari, I called, worried the sight of me had scared her off. There was another flicker of lightning, and I saw her standing closer. She pointed at me, grinning delightedly. You look like an Emir, she said. Kvothe is one of the Siridae. And then, then he's like, I was so surprised by her reference that I forgot the first thing I learned about Ari. And I forgot to be careful and asked her a question. Ari, how do you know about the Siridae? There was no response. The next flicker of lightning showed me nothing but an empty rooftop and an unforgiving sky. And she dipped the fuck out. Obviously, she comes back quickly, showing how much their relationship has changed and how much she's come to trust him. But yeah, she's got that instinct to get the fuck out of town as soon as you try to get any kind of personal information on her.
Yeah, and there was one other interesting aspect I want to throw out because Kvothe explains who the Siridae is. The most high of the
Emir.
The Emir, yes.
Actually, remind me, I know we've talked about it many, many times, but in the first read-through, do we know by this point what the Siridae is? It's on the pod, right?
I don't remember, because we have talked about it a bunch of times, so I don't remember when the first time the Siridae come up, but yeah, the Siridae are the bloody hand of the Emir. They're beyond reproach. It's probably not. This is probably the first time they're brought up in the books, but I can't remember off the top of my head because we've talked about it too much.
Well, and I'm pretty sure she brings it. I think she brings up the next chapter where she says, "You're beyond reproach," right?
Yeah.
Like he apologizes, and that's what I thought.
Yeah.
There was only one other thing that I was going to bring up. It's small, but it makes sense. In the chapter, somewhere in the chapter, he points out how his loot case looked like shit, and it took him forever to fucking deal with the wire to get it open. So that, which reminds me again with additional read-throughs that's coming up.
Yeah, it builds to how nice of a gift it truly is.
Yeah.
It's obviously over the top expensive, but it's super meaningful for someone like Kvothe.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, really shows you who Denna is.
Well, it's actually I actually love the way that whole thing plays out. What I always remember more than anything is Denna's reaction of like, God fucking damn it, I'm such a piece of shit. Every time I try to give somebody a gift, I fuck it up. And he's like, no, it's great. And he's like, I just saw what happened. You just fucking fell to pieces because you thought this thing was gone, and I didn't fucking like. She didn't respect how much he needs the loot, how it's like his family member. And when it was gone, he was fucking a mess. And she just thought, well, he won't have it for a while, and then he'll get it back. Which it is kind of fucked up. Like you took his shit. It's like you took the loot. You didn't just take his case. You took his loot.
She needed it, but it's something. But it's also that's kind of like Kvothe, like he, not thinking things through.
Yeah.
Like when he breaks into Ambrose's room. It's just like, here, I want to do this nice thing for Denna, so I'll just snap into Ambrose's room, get in, get out, no problem. Like doesn't think of like how that shit's gonna blow up in his face.
I kind of like the idea. I keep thinking about this stuff visually. Like, you show it in a movie, and like he ends up in the room, and then he's like, "All right, what was I doing again?" Wait, what was that? What was the?
Gets so caught up in like uncinching Ambrose's pants, and then like, he's doing that for like 15 minutes, and then he's like, "Oh shit, the ring! What am I doing?"
Actually, that's pretty great. That's good comic relief.
He's like taking a dump in his pillowcase, and then he's like, "Oh, the ring! Get your shit together, man."
I love the idea of that. Like he's doing all these little petty mischief things, and then like the second he remembers the ring, then he hears the door.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. And he fucked it all up. The reason he fucked it all up isn't because Ambrose was prepared and smart. It was because he was busy undoing his pants and shitting his pillowcase.
Yeah. He wastes the entire time in the room on pranks.
He's like unspooling his toilet paper and shit.
Like, no, guys. Like, you didn't get the ring, but like, no, guys, you don't understand. Like he's not going to be able to sit down ever again. All
He's
his
like, "No,
pants,
guy-
all of his
Will."
pants, they're going to fucking split, man. It's going to be hilarious.
Will, I tied his strings together. Well, isn't he going to have to untie him just to get them on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
But no, I peed just like a little bit in each of his shoes. So it like dries up, but once he starts sweating and stuff, oh man, that smell's gonna come back. Oh, it's gonna be hilarious. Everybody's gonna be like fucking calling him, Piss Pants Ambrose. Ambrose Piss Pants.
Piss
You
Pants,
piss my
bros.
pants. Yeah,
Piss
okay,
pants,
yeah.
bro.
You just always smell like piss for no reason.
I hope that's how it works out. That's pretty
Yeah.
good. Or you know what? We'll just have to write it. We'll adapt it for Netflix or Hulu or whomever.
Yeah.
That way we get all these things fitted in.
Yeah. Mr. Hulu, I'm sure you're listening. If you'd like, hit us up. We'll get that Mario Brothers in there.
Yeah.
We'll fucking knock this shit out quick.
Well, I mean,
real quick.
If Rothfuss doesn't get his shit together and get the book out, maybe we want to think about putting our heads together and just go in and writing this thing. We could do it in a week.
Yeah,
or so.
Here's the deal.
Mr. Netflix, Mr. Hulu, any of you guys, just hit me up. I'll knock it out.
It'd be really interesting too to also have just like clearly we were obsessed with having an integrated network of roads and streets on top of roofs.
Yeah.
It's like, what's their deal with this? Like, what?
It's like, hold on. Like, so, like in the pilot, half of the episode is the roofing industry. And Rothfuss doesn't write about the roofing industry at all. It's like, well, look, we're doing an adaptation. It's not going to be the exact same.
And Mr. Hulu's going to be like, well, the other half is just the main characters taking shits.
Like, look, who did the podcast about these books? Did you guys do a podcast about these books? You don't know what the fans want.
Yeah, we
Trust me,
have tested.
We talked
all
about
of
the
this.
roofing industry, and it was a huge hit.
People want the realism of the potty breaks and the flossing and the toothbrush. That they want that. This is big. We're selling toothbrushes over here.
Yeah. Fucking doing merch in the middle of the episode. Like, dude's wearing like a gray Dalcenti shirt with like our website on the shirt.
Well, I like the idea of like that plus like the guys, it's Denna sitting on the pot, but she's in deep thought. And then they flash to Kvothe, and he's sitting on the pot in deep thought. And there's some dramatic music, that really makes it all tie together. But then they go to Will, and he's got that gray Dalcenti sweatshirt on, and he's sitting on the pot, and he's in really deep thought. Just that's the whole episode. Just everybody,
Well, it's that, and then
then flash to the clay, the map,
and then a bit. Well, yeah, I was gonna say, a big scoping shot of the top of Maine's. And
that's how every episode starts off.
Anchors.
Like, instead of the Game of Thrones where it goes over the map and it shows the map expanding, it goes over the map, but it just zooms in and they're all like, taking a dump. That's how we include those in the intro to every episode. It's just them sitting there reading a newspaper.
It's dumps
reading the newspaper
in the roof. It's the dumps, and then they show them taking the dump, and then the camera pans up, or it goes up, and then you see the roofs again.
Pans out.
Back to the
guys working on roofs, fixing the tiles from these dudes running on the roof all the time.
It's all like, dude, what the fuck? Why is this all about roofs and shits?
So you gotta listen to your podcast. You wouldn't get it.
Yeah, you won't get it. But it's important to the storyline.
Instead of like you got to read the book, it's gonna be like you got to listen to the podcast. Like I listen to the podcast, so I get it.
I'm really looking forward to seeing shots also of Denna in her Jack in the Box visor her corporate visor that she wears as she mans the register at the Jack in the Box. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like Mario
It's gonna be the
running
biggest
across
show in
the
the
roofs.
history of TV.
Yes, hands down. If they
This
just
is
do
all
what we
foundational.
just described.
Well,
Yeah,
it's all
absolutely.
foundational. I don't know how you could have the show or the third book without all this stuff. It just
No.
isn't going to make sense.
We just crush it week after week. Just constantly crushing. So what do we got? Let's see. Next week we're going to get into. He's going to start thinking about getting a Graham. He's going to talk to Sleek, I think his name is Sleet, and the other Gaelet ends up getting a crossbow from him, which is he subtly gets into his arrow catch. He doesn't like spell out that he's doing things for the arrow catch, but he is doing things for the arrow catch throughout. So it's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff. And then he's going to, next week, we will get to his meeting with Devi, where they go head to head. That's going to be the big chapter we get to.
Yeah. And talk about one of the one times or the many times that I'm like, Kvothe, God, what are you doing? When he attacks Devi, it's really disheartening to me.
Yeah, it's one that gets a lot of people. Most people focus on Kvothe. I think her reaction was idiotic as well. I don't give her a pass either. Like, she reacted in a stupid way. She could have been like, hold on, step back, explain to me what's going on.
Yeah, it's the same thing that gets so frustrating with Kvothe and Denna. It's when the communication's not happening, and you're like, dude, you guys could just communicate about this shit.
Yeah,
you know that, right?
Yeah, Kvothe's not an idiot. If Devi had slowed him down instead of immediately getting defensive and then being unreasonable, because that's what makes him think like, oh, it's clearly her. Because look at her, and he realizes she's the one that made the plumb bob. So that immediately, when that puts her on her heels when he finds out that information. So yeah, she fucks up that situation as much as he does. Everybody gives her a pass and doesn't even mention her, but like, to me, I'm like, no, like, if she had handled it differently, nothing would have happened. Same as if Kvothe handled it differently, nothing would have happened. But I think they both fucked up.
It is interesting though that he does seem to have that. He does have that tendency where he thinks he figured something out in his mind, and he just goes, that's the direction he's going in, and he closes out all the possibility for nuance past that.
Yeah,
it's like he just puts.
He does it a lot.
But I mean that's
same thing with his with the girl. He's like, someone must be trying to screw me over.
But it's fun. What's interesting is it there's utility in that, and that he's fully focused on the task at hand. So because he's fully focused on the task at hand, he can, again, heart of stone or whatever, have that LR that's going to, drive directly at the hole. But, when there's nuance that needs to be accounted for, you're fucking up.
It's kind of a little detrimental to open-mindedness and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and this is the problem you run into. You're dealing with other personalities, and there are other things to account for. There's other complications to account for, and you're leaving all that aside. So this is why you run into you're getting fucked up by a little girl, bro.
All right. Well, so join us next week. We'll have a lot more roofing discussions. We didn't plan on talking about roofing, so next week we'll be sure to really think through our thoughts and have a long conversation on roofing in this world.
Focus.
And also, since Kilvin's coming back, we'll get into some more hot yoga and 80s montages that him and Kilvin could do. So a lot of good stuff next week.
Yeah, some sweaty, passionate romantic scenes between Kvothe and Kilvin. I'm looking forward to seeing his nice Jerry curl get unwound and flipped about.
It's gonna be There's a lot of it's an amazing bromance under the surface that you
Yeah.
just really don't you don't appreciate unless you're listening to our podcast and
I'm
getting
picturing-
some of these undertones.
I'm picturing the cover of book 3 is just the two of them, and it's like the J.C. Penney, the hazy 1980s glamour shot, and it's Kilvin, Kvothe, like together matching sweaters.
Kilvin, like Fabio.
A Fabio cover.
There you
Kilvin's
go.
Fabio and Kavothe's the woman.
Yeah.
Or it's like Leia, like he's like Leia at Kilvin's leg.
Yeah. Oh man,
It's so ridiculous.
That's really funny.
yeah.
There you
Feel
go,
free.
Rothfuss.
You can have any of these ideas, Rothfuss. Like you don't need. I don't even need credit. Like we got it on recording. That's good enough. We just want the books to be good. So
Yeah.
feel free.
So
That image will encapsulate book 3 better than anything else you can come up with.
Yeah, just use our ideas because I want the books to be good, not because I need the credit.
Well said.
All right. We will talk to you guys next week. Peace out.
later.
Yes, sir.